Good evening, squad. It's snowing outside again. And now I'm inside where it's warm, and thankfully I have several hoodies because I got soaked. Snow is thick. So thick. We're gonna continue playing 428 Shibuya Scramble. This is gonna be the last stream of the week because I start my weeks on Mondays. Also, Sunday I'm not around. But we'll be back at least by next Thursday, but maybe sooner. I'm thinking of doing a makeup stream, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. For now, we are stuck in the middle of, I think, 4 o'clock. We're in the 4 to 5 o'clock range. Yeah. And we've got... Let's see, we got Osawa to the end of his chapter. Right, we got... Originally, we had him go to the lab, and that didn't work out very well for him or Minorikawa. So, we're going to continue with Minorikawa's route first. He's on his way back to the publishing office. Kano, we've got to the end. And then we'll have to find a jump for Maria. But... we'll probably finish at least this chapter tonight and maybe get started on the next one. I think. That seems likely. Maybe we can get a whole this chapter finished and a whole nother one done. We'll see where the time takes us. I gotta pack tonight still. But I did get all my work done, which means I don't have to worry about podcasts that go up on Monday over the weekend. Don't really get snow here, just wet, nasty mush that freezes. We don't usually get snow in Victoria. And when we do, it lasts a couple of hours. Maybe it lasts an evening. It's been here for a few days now. It's very strange. Alright. We're gonna keep the do not take stick with you option, because we need Achi to not get beaten to death. Alright. This time, for sure, got Minorikawa to the end of his chapter. You look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess so. Alright, he thinks his friend has died in that minivan explosion still. His reply was barely audible. But not the way I read it. I read it very audibly. The taxi stopped outside of Heaven Publishing. The trip had taken 10 minutes on the dot. Thanks. Minorikawa left a 1,000-yen bill on the seat next to the cab. Sir! The driver called after him. Minorikawa turned back around. Kimizuka was leaning out the window to point at him. It isn't called work because it's fun, sir. The day will be over soon enough. Just hang in there a little bit longer. Aw, taxi friend. The driver finished with a knowing grin. Minorikawa cracked a ghost of a smile. Maybe his spirits had been lifted just a tiny little bit. Thank you, he replied. You're a true friend of the working man. He waved half-heartedly, then headed into the building. And then nothing bad happened. Mr. Mino! Okay, maybe something happened. Chiaki threw herself at him as soon as he opened the door to the editing office. News of the explosion was playing on the television. Minorikawa marched straight to his desk and opened up his laptop. Now, in the other timeline, we said that Kano agreed that we should give the name of the person who died in the explosion away. So hopefully that'll work out to this benefit. While it booted up, he tried to get a handle on the current situation. Where are the folks from the loan company, he asked. They're here, Chiaki said. I have them waiting downstairs. Do they know Toyama's dead? I'm sorry. I kinda let that slip. What about Hannah? I'm not sure. I haven't heard from her since she called earlier. With a tiny sigh, Minorikawa started typing on his laptop. By some miracle, his 6 pages of the copy were nearly wrapped up. Still, he needed to do whatever it took to see his job through to the end. That would serve as his final tribute to Toyama's memory. He loaded his copy into the DTP software in order to set the layout. Bit by bit, actual magazine articles began to take shape. Then the editing department door swung open. "Hey," snarled the young man who barged in first and kicked over some stuff because he's a rude boy. "That stuff was a stack of books. How long are you gonna keep us waiting, huh?" "Oh yes, these two look like the two that you could convince. Hey, look, I got some copy done, everything's fine." Absolutely. Honestly, Segawa, must you be so rowdy?" A middle-aged man stepped in alongside him. "Are you Mr. Minorikawa then?" he added as his eyes fixed on the journalist. He held out his business card. "A pleasure to meet you. I'm Asao Ozu from Takarada Financing." "Ah, yes, the Yakuza front. A black market lending firm that offers loans at an interest rate above what the law allows. Well known for taking whatever steps necessary to collect what's owed. Its business card slogan, got bad credit, but you need a loan? Call anytime. We'll put together a loan that suits your needs." Sounds like those, instant cash money tree scams. My deepest sympathy about Mr. Toyama. However, I'm afraid that we do need you to give us back the money we loaned. Despite his polite tone, the threat in his voice was plain. Look, next month's issue of 4-Star General Gossip is definitely coming out. Couldn't you please wait for repayment until we have the funds from those sales? Minorikawa asked. That was exactly what Toyama's plan had been, after all. Kavina, hey, thank you for that 18-month resub. Internet is hiccupy tonight, but I'm determined to watch. I hope it gets over its case of the hiccups. Maybe it needs a glass of water. Well, we certainly aren't monsters. If the magazine is going to be making you money, we wouldn't mind delaying another month. You really mean it? Chiaki chirped. To clarify, that would be the case if Toyama were still alive. Releasing the next issue is all well and good, but with Toyama gone, so too is the company. That will make full repayment of what we were owed impossible, I expect. Then what do you want us to do? Minorikawa asked coldly. How about we just cut to the chase? Growled the younger man, Sagawa. I'm very bad. Gonna dump some water on my router. What a cute little... Is that for today? I didn't know Twitch was doing those little hearts. Those are cute. Dig out your ears and listen up. Jackie recoiled in a panic, and Minorikawa held up an interposing hand. Knock it off, he said. You're scaring the young lady. A thin smile came to Ozu's face. All we want to know is where Mr. Toyama's daughter is. Oh, sure. Yes. Threaten a child. Not that you were good people to begin with, but come on. Yeah, that's it, right, Sagawa said. Tell us where the girl is. No way, Chiaki squeaked in protest. Hana's just a little kid. She doesn't have any responsibility to pay back the... Ozu didn't let her finish. We're aware of that. Nevertheless, we'd still like to know where she is. The law didn't matter right now. Guys like this had all sorts of ways of wringing money out of people. It was clear from the looks on their faces that Ozu and Sagawa had some wicked scheme up their sleeves. Hey Eric, hey Night Valen. Unless, of course, you would prefer to take on Toyama's debts, Mr. Minorikawa. You're quite the accomplished reporter, after all. Take on his debts, huh? Minorikawa didn't know how much Toyama had borrowed, but it only took one look at these guys to tell it was no small sum. How about it, Ozu asked. The way you land scoop after scoop, I'm sure you'll be able to repay us in full before you die. Well. Wanted to use cute bits too. Thank you, Kitty Kibitzer. Minorikawa fiercely returned his stare. Can't we just call it even? Seems like an unlikely thing. I'll take on the debt. How about I'll consider it. Maybe that's safe? That doesn't seem like it's a very safe option. I'll consider it. Can you give me some time? Chiaki went pale at Minorukawa's response. No. How can you even think about taking their offer? She cried. Sagawa stepped in, droning her out. No way. We've waited long enough. Give us your answer now. Yes or no. What's it gonna be? Now. Let's just calm down, Ozu chided. He said that he'd consider it. That's a step in the right direction. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Minorukawa? Sure. Then I suppose we can wait at least a little while longer. Minorukawa had hoped to put them off for several days at least, but it didn't look like that was going to happen. They're just going to hang out until I say yes, aren't they? The two men from Takahata Financing plunked themselves down on the editing department sofa. I said soda. That doesn't make sense. Mr. Mino, you're not actually going to take on that debt, are you? Chiaki asked quietly. Minorukawa sat at the desk looking over the copy he'd written. That's none of your concern, he said. What I need to know is, how's your piece on those street interviews coming? But, I mean, those guys, they said it doesn't matter if the issue comes out or not. Don't be ridiculous. When a professional agrees to take on a job, they see it through to the end. Chiaki took his point and scampered to grab the printout of her copy. Minorukawa gave it a quick once-over. He saw immediately that the piece was lacking in structure. He then read the article a second time, checking the finer details. Several off-theme sentences jumped out at him. This is no good, rewrite it. He thrust the printout back at Chiaki. Yes, sir. She bowed her head and retreated to another desk. The TV was still on. A news broadcaster's voice suddenly broke through the silence as well as Minorukawa's concentration. We're live on the scene now, where an explosion in Shibuya has... Minorukawa gazed blankly at the screen. He found his mind drifting to a particular memory of Toyama. Flashback. The door looked like it might fall apart at any moment, but Minorukawa didn't care. He pounded on it as hard as he could. The Toyama nameplate popped off and fell to the floor. It was hard to believe this dilapidated apartment was the home of a newspaper editor who would work his way up from reporter. Hey, Toyama, get your ass out here. At the sound of Minorukawa's angry shouting, other tenants on the floor poked their heads out of their rooms to stare. He paid them no heed, continuing to call out. Eventually, Toyama opened the door, dressed in his sweats and undershirt. Quiet down, you moron, he snapped. Come in. I hear you tendered your letter of resignation at the paper. Minorukawa sat cross-legged on the tatami-covered floor. Tell me why. Toyama quirked a lopsided grin. You want to know why I quit, huh? Yeah, he did actually ask you. All right, then. Leaning close. Minorukawa peered at him dubiously. Huh? Why? I don't want anyone overhearing this. Resigned, Minorukawa leaned forward and turned his right ear toward Toyama. The man's warm breath against his cheek was pretty unsettling. At first he had trouble concentrating on Toyama's story, but when the older man got to the crux of the matter, he found himself listening with rapt attention. By the time Toyama finished, Minorukawa was unable to suppress his shock. You're starting your own publishing company? Not so loud, damn it! Toyama shushed him with a finger at his lips. He looked around warily as if there might be spies in his own apartment. Right, but a publishing company? Minorukawa said, again, more quietly this time. What are you doing for your distributor account? All booksellers were required to use a wholesale distributor to circulate their publications. To do business with such a distributor, a publisher needed a specialized distributor account. They're not going to let a company with no track record open a new account with a distributor. I'm sure you must realize that. Toyama grinned, a proud gleam in his eyes. I know. That's why I bought one. You bought one? A ghost account belonging to a publisher that went bankrupt. Distributor accounts could go for tens of millions of yen. There was no way Toyama could afford that on his severance pay alone. He must have taken out a loan in order to make the purchase. But the publishing industry was in a slump nowadays. People just weren't buying books much anymore. Starting up a new publishing company was a beyond risky endeavor. And I've already decided on a name for my company, Minorukawa. Toyama's face was positively beaming. Get this. Heaven Publishing. Heaven? That sounds fatalistic. The idea is that people who work for me will feel like they're in paradise. For all his kvetching about keeping quiet, Toyama was now exclaiming pretty loudly himself. I mean, I can appreciate your willingness to take the risk, but surely your wife must have had objections, Minorikawa said. Toyama fell silent. He went and opened up the refrigerator. Minorikawa took a peek inside. Its shelves were mournfully spare, holding little besides beer cans and drinking snacks. The missus left me, took our daughter with her. The scant few words painted the picture clearly enough. Toyama grabbed a can of beer and tossed it to his guest. But no more sob stories, he went on. He briskly cracked open his own can of beer. Weak foam bubbled from the top. Cheers, Minorikawa, to Heaven Publishing's big debut. He'd cast everything aside and was striving for a new beginning. If the man had braced himself for the challenge, it wasn't Minorikawa's place to tell him he was making a mistake. Even if it was an uphill battle, he had little chance of winning. Congrats, Mr. Toyama. Minorikawa pulled the tab on his beer can. Cheers. The two of them clacked their cans together. Kanpai. Hey, you Black. 1 year had passed since Toyama founded in Heaven Publishing. Minorikawa poked his head into the editing office, a bag from the convenience store in hand. Hey boss, how's business? How does it look like it's doing? Toyama sat amongst a veritable mountain of returned stock, his expression bleak. Returned stock. Bookstores do not purchase the books they sell, but rather take them on consignment. This allows them to return to the publisher any books that do not sell. Ah. The books were all bulky, non-fiction tomes, not exactly the sort to fly off the shelves. The man couldn't even muster a smile for the reunion. It's been like this for every non-fiction book we've put out. Starting right off with the bleak stuff, huh? 'Cause things are bleak. The only thing that's selling is this gossip rag of ours. Minorikawa pulled some beer cans from his bag, handing one to Toyama. Toyama lifted an issue of 4-star General Gossip from atop his desk. It was Heaven Publishing's one breadwinner, the only thing keeping the company afloat. Oh, that's scary. But the gossip now seemed like it was buried in the red of the publisher's non-fiction releases. I really did have higher aspirations than this, Toyama sighed, gazing in disappointment at the piles of unsold books. Hey, Dracus. But here we are, with our gossip magazine as our only viable publication. The beleaguered bookseller chugged his beer. Daddy, I'm hungry. Minorikawa was startled to hear a young child's voice. He turned around to see a little girl nestled between the stacks of returned stock. That's my daughter, Hannah, Toyama said. It's complicated. But she's living with me now. I see. Minorikawa couldn't press for more details with Hannah right there. Thank you, Manic Pixie Dreamlurker. Kanpai. In all likelihood, things with Toyama's ex-wife hadn't been going well. Go on, introduce yourself, Toyama said. This is one of Daddy's work friends. Hannah turned to Minorikawa with a bright little grin. Hello, my name's Hannah. I'm 6. You want some of this? Minorikawa held out a packet of dried squid he brought to go with the beers. Sure. Hannah greedily stuffed her cheeks with the squid. Toyama flushed, a sheepish grin. Do you like living with your daddy, Hannah? Minorikawa asked, giving the girl's hair a gentle ruffle. Uh-huh, I do. My daddy's amazing. He runs a company. Toyama let out a tiny involuntary sob at his daughter's ready praise. Thank you for the cheer, Kavita. Precious baby, but we already knew that. Yeah. Hannah's cute. I'll keep at it, Toyama said, looking into his daughter's smiling face. Hannah's more important to me than any high aspirations I might have had. I'll keep shoveling out copies of the gossip. At least make sure she's always got something good to eat. Daddy, this is really tasty. Hannah held up the pouch of dried squid. Tears welled in Toyama's eyes. Next time I'll make sure she has some sashimi instead of something like this. Hey, what do you mean, something like this? Minorikawa grumbled. I'm the one who brought it. Toyama and his daughter laughed together. It was a heartwarming sight, Minorikawa thought, a father and his girl getting along so well. Toyama might have been a hard-hitting journalist, but when he came home at the end of the day, he was just daddy. It was only natural for a man as a father to put his child above everything else. After gorging herself on snacks, Hannah fell asleep on the sofa, looking well and truly satisfied. You know, Minorikawa, Hannah's happiness means more to me than my lofty artistic ideals ever could. Toyama kept his voice low as he regarded his daughter's sleeping face. And from that day forward, Heaven Publishing had shifted its focus to scandal rags, with four-star general gossip as its pillar. Had that been for good or for ill? Whatever the case, Toyama had abandoned his pride. Minorikawa had watched him become more and more of a miserable wretch. Minorikawa snapped back into the present as a sheaf of pages appeared in front of his face. "Here you go," Chiaki said, radiating anxiety. "Right." Minorikawa gave her copy a close read over, then thrust it back out to her. "What did you even fix?" he asked. Could you please tell me what parts are wrong?" she mumbled, hanging her head. "What are you talking about?" "It's just, well, we don't have a lot of time here, so I figure if I could just fix the parts that need fixing." Chiaki trailed off into an indistinct mutter. "Is that always how you go about fixing your copy?" Yes?" "Then you're never going to get any better. If someone tells you it's no good, you rewrite the whole thing from scratch. Just making fiddly tweaks here and there is what an amateur does." I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, sure, sometimes. Jackie dipped her head in even deeper, cringing at the reprimand. Minorikawa let out a tiny sigh. "Minorikawa, you are an unhelpful person. Look, what I just told you, that's what Toyama told me when I was first starting out. There were times he'd have me do dozens of rewrites. At first, I thought he was just pushing me around. But after rewriting things over and over, I realized something. There are a whole lot of ways you can write about the same thing, and that's what helped me hone my skills as a writer." Jackie raised her head back up. "Oh wow, really? If you can get that, then stick with it. Ride your submission deadline as close as you have to in order to write the best piece you can." "Okay, I can do it. I will do it." Finally, Jackie's face brightened with a smile. "That's the spirit." The woman might have talent, but she hadn't realized it yet. She needed to be able to stick to an assignment even when things got tough. If she didn't have that kind of resolve, she'd never make it as a freelancer. And then these jerks were still in the room. "Oh, how touching," Ozu chimed in, applauding. "I'm almost moved to tears. They'll make a movie for this, for sure. See, we had only been acquainted with that sad sap Toyama. We never knew there was such an upstanding fellow here who was so good at tough love." Minorikawa shot to his feet, pounded his fist on the desk. "That's about enough from the peanut gallery." "Hold your tongue," Sagawa snarled. His eyes shone with a vicious gleam. "We're getting sick of waiting here. Sagawa, you really are a short-tempered guy, aren't you?" Ozu clucked disapprovingly at his underling, then slid a sheet of paper onto Minorikawa's desk. "Nevertheless, I'm afraid we do require a decision now. If you'll just stamp here, we'll be on our way." Chiaki stared down at the document. "Is this a bond of recognizance?" "Yeah, that's right. That's what you write when transferring a debt." Sagawa puffed himself up proudly. Minorikawa silently looked over the contract. "If you don't have a stamp, we'll gladly accept a signature as well," Ozu pointed out. "Face it, pal," Sagawa added. "If you don't hurry up and sign, we're never gonna stop going after Toyama's daughter." Minorikawa snatched up a pen. "Mr. Mino, you can't do this. Think about what you're doing," Chiaki shouted. "If you go through with this, you'll just wind up like Mr. Toyama." "I won't." "Yes, you will. Just who the hell do you think I am? I'm Minoru Minorikawa. Damn it. I'm going to land so many scoops it will make your head spin. And I'm going to pay back his debt and rebuild Heaven Publishing." "But why would you take such a risk?" Chiaki sobbed. Minorikawa lowered his voice. "Because I owe him so much. I can't stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter." "Aha!" Before Minorikawa could sign, Sagawa startled him with a sudden exclamation. Looking up, Minorikawa saw what the loan sharks had seen, little Hannah, standing by the door. "Get her! On it, boss!" Ozu and Sagawa rushed at the girl. "Run!" Minorikawa shouted. Hannah bolted right back out the door, but Ozu managed to snatch her up just as she reached the stairs. Let's be on our way, shall we? A vile grin came to Ozu's cruel face as he headed down the stairwell. Okay. I was like, that doesn't look like he's holding... Stop! Let her go! Minarakawa rushed after them, trying to grab the girl, but Sagawa drove a punch right into his face. Alright. Oog. The pain staggered him. Well, this seems like a bad end. Nevertheless, he managed to press on. Get your hands off of that girl. Ah. Yeah. Shut your damn mouth. Something hard slammed into his chest. His vision went dark. He felt himself slipping from consciousness. Just before he blacked out, he heard Hannah's voice. I'm sorry, Uncle Minarakawa. Sorry? No, I'm the one who should apologize. But before his thoughts got any further, Minarakawa passed out. Yeah, bad end. Angry Optimus, hey, thank you for that resub. Everything's fine. Alright. Hannah showed up at the office only to get caught by the moneylenders, and Sagawa drop-kicked Minarakawa into unconsciousness when he tried to save her. Turns out, Hannah had been at the police station just before this, trying to decide if she should tell the police her father had been killed in the explosion. Then someone brought her to Heaven Publishing, which was clearly a mistake. Right, that would have been Kano. Alright, so... to avoid the bad end, Hannah can't go there. Alright, Kano. Where... is it here? Is it this one? Or was it earlier? I spotted a girl sitting on the pedestrian. Yeah, it's this one. Isn't it? There's no other... yeah, he runs into her out there, so... let's see if this does it. Kano thought about Sasayama's wife and decided to get in touch with her. Called Sasayama's home phone, but nobody picked up. Perhaps she'd gone to the hospital. So he called the hospital. After a little while, a woman's voice came through the receiver. Yes, this is Mrs. Sasayama. Her voice was thin and reedy. My name's Shinya Kano. I work with your husband on the force. What happened? He didn't know what to say. He couldn't find the words. I wish that he'd been there. When he'd gone to make that arrest, he blurted out at last. I should have tried to get there and back him up sooner. If I hadn't been too late. He trailed off, hoping he hadn't said too much. Sasayama's wife answered in her gentle, quavering voice. Thank you so much for your concern. I'm glad that my husband is lucky enough to have a colleague like you. No, I couldn't. I married a detective, Mr. Kano. I've prepared myself for the possibility that something like this might happen. But she certainly didn't sound like she was prepared. Kano felt a biting pain in his chest. Your husband gave me something to hold on to for you. I'd like to give it to you if I can. Oh? Well, certainly, but I'd like to stay here by his side today if possible. Of course. I'll head on over to the hospital myself then. I hope you don't mind if I pay a visit. Of course not. Sorry to trouble you like this. Thank you so much. Kano hung up, then hurried out of the precinct. Nope. He spots a girl. This is all gonna be... yep. Go back. That is not the right choice. Let's worry about Rumi instead. And to worry about Rumi, decided to give her a call. The phone rang several times before it went to voicemail. The fact that she hadn't picked up made Kano all the more anxious. He was still staring at his phone when he got a call of his own. When he peered at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tateno's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call. Detective Tateno? Detective Tateno, is that you? There was a whole mountain of things Kano wanted to ask. Just what had Tateno been doing this whole time? Why'd he let the guy go free? What happened to Hitomi? Secured Maria. What? Detective Tateno, you have to bring her here ASAP. Right now she's... Tateno cut him off. You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once. Hitomi? Osawa? Yes. I hear over the wireless that the man from the US Embassy had her in custody. Kano hadn't been listening to the most recent wireless. But what was Tateno getting at here? Wait, hold on. What for? I mean, why do you need me to bring Hitomi to you? There was no reply. Answer me. Replied. There's an office building. Right, so... But... Kano's hand went limp, his phone grasped the floor. This is information I know. Where's the part where... There. Okay, cool. Now it's stuck. That still gets there. Great. Here he is, Norikawa. So now Hannah won't show up here, and that won't happen. Can I skip some of this? But why would you take such a risk? Chiaki sobbed. Norikawa lowered his voice. Because I owe him so much. I can't stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter. Oh. Norikawa readied his pen and signed the document. Alright, Gawa cheered. Now we're talking. A satisfied grin came to Ozu's face as he reached for the contract. But before he could pick it up, Chiaki snatched it from the desk. I'm not letting you do this! Crumpling the paper, she stuffed it right into her mouth. Hey, Sagawa snapped. What the hell are you doing? He tried to force Chiaki's mouth open. Don't you dare you be. But despite his frantic efforts, Chiaki managed to gulp the wad of paper down. Sagawa blinked a few times. Oh, you did not just do that. Ozu looked on, dumbstruck. Guess we gotta get a new contract from the office boss. Bring as many as you want, Chiaki declared. I'll just keep eating them. Girl, you got some kind of damn goat or something? A goat. The mental image of a goat eating paper is a common one, dating back to long ago, when paper was made solely out of plant material. If a goat were to eat modern paper, the wad of chemically treated pulp would go undigested, and possibly cause an intestinal blockage. So please do not feed paper to goats. The goat there. The precious cinnamon roll. Sagawa shoved Chiaki up against the desk. Ow, cut it out. That hurts. As she struggled to resist, Chiaki lurched forward to the desk, planting one of her hands atop the TV remote control. One of her fingers happened to hit on the volume up button. The sound from the television set soon hit max volume. We have just learned the identity of the victim killed in the explosion. Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical executive. Shibuya resident? Norikawa tilted his head in confusion. Toyama didn't live in Shibuya. Once again, the victim of the explosion was Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. The cause of the explosion remains unknown. The police are still in the process of following up several potential leads. The site of the incident remains an alarming scene, with relief workers continuing to tend to the wounded. The four people in the editing office spoke in near unison. Huh? Who's Tanaka? Yay! Everybody's still okay. heard the game, chat. No feeding paper to goats. Alright. I think the only one left is Maria, which means we need to find a jump point for you. Is it here? Yeah. It's here. Come on. I'm gonna get everyone safely to 5 o'clock. I hear a faint voice and realize the man is listening to a wireless radio. I've managed to secure Hitomi Osawa at Shibuya Central Hospital, the voice says. A gleam comes to the gunman's eyes. He pulls his cell phone from his jacket and hurriedly makes a call. I've secured Maria Osawa, he says to whoever's on the other end. Huh? Maria Osawa? Is my name Maria Osawa? You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once. Hitomi? Hitomi Osawa? If I'm Maria Osawa, what sort of relationship do I have to Hitomi? If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria. Then my captor hangs up. Were you serious just now? My voice wavers uncontrollably. What do you mean you'll kill me? Don't look at me like that. He steps in closer to me, his expression dangerous. That killer's edge that he'd lost during our little talk is back in full force. Just bear with me a little longer. He blindfolds my eyes with some sort of towel. I can't see through it at all. That is a defective blindfold. Just then, I hear Cannon's voice inside my head. My memories are like shards of broken glass, tumbling through my mind, all out of sequence. It's not a very good conspiracy map. How are you able to do that when the string is so tangled up? Oh, once you know the trick to it, you can do it with your eyes closed. I'm showing Cannon how to do a cat's cradle. She reaches out for the string. Huh? She doesn't get hold of it quite right. What gives? Despite her efforts, the string gets all jumbled up. No, not like that, I say. Hook your index fingers through the front part of the string. No, I get that. Cannon's getting irritated. But after giving it a few more tries, she finally manages to pull it off. There we go, she says. Look at that. Seeing her innocent little smile bolsters my own spirits. That's neat. Thanks for teaching me. Oh, it's nothing special. Here. As a thanks, let me teach you some skills to help protect yourself. Abruptly, my memory jumps forward a bit. Cannon has been training me in some sort of self-defense. Self-defense, techniques for protecting oneself when attacked. Rather than defeating the opponent, self-defense training generally prioritizes simply getting oneself away from danger. Some people consider behavioral tenets such as run away when you're attacked or don't go near dangerous places to be forms of self-defense as well. Don't overthink it, she says. People will either try to punch you, kick you, or grab you. If you can stay ready for those three things, you'll be able to take it from there. She demonstrates some defensive movements as I watch. I follow suit, doing my best to mimic her. Okay, let's do this. Cannon throws a punch at me. I dodge, grab her by the wrist, and give her arm a hard twist. Incredibly, she goes whirling through the air. She lands nimbly on her feet, a little grin coming to her face. Nicely done, she says. I stare down at my own hand. Did I really just do that? Once you repeat the movements enough, your body will treat them like second nature. I do as she says, trying to repeat the movements over and over. At first it feels like a silly gimmick, but eventually I can feel the motions growing smoother. There you go. People like those thugs we met before won't get the drop on you again. Thugs? Now my memories zip further back into the past. I was wandering the streets trying to get back to my hotel, but I'd gotten lost. By the time I realized I'd wandered into some dodgy back streets, I was already surrounded by people giving me threatening looks. They must have been thugs looking for tourists to rob. If they had caught me, I'm not sure I would have made it out alive. But they hadn't. Cannon had seen to that. Thank you so much for what you did for me. I didn't want there to be a scene here, Cannon says bluntly as she surveys the aftermath of the thug's attack. That's all. It happened to be right underneath her apartment window when I was nearly abducted. Bit by bit, my memories of Cannon are starting to resurface. Just a little more. Just a little more and I'll have myself back, I'm sure of it. Detective Tatano, where are you? A man's voice suddenly snaps me back into the moment. It's Kano, I've come as you've asked. The gunman grabs me by the arm and yanks me to my feet. Where's Hitomi Osawa? He snarls. Why didn't you bring her? Detective Tatano, why are you doing this? Is that really Maria? My captor removes my blindfold. The first thing I see is a huge blimp drifting slowly by overhead. Huh? I'm sure I've seen it before. Pretty recently at that. There's a flash of revelation inside my head, like a dam bursting. My memories come flooding back to me. The blimp was there that night. Dun dun dun. Last night, I was at a party, a sort of mixer with exchange students. Someone was plotting to use this party as an opportunity to abduct my sister Hitomi, and so I told Hitomi that the party started 1 hour later than it really did. I had a plan, to let myself get abducted in Hitomi's place. Of course, the idea was just to let myself get kidnapped. The necklace I wore was outfitted with a tiny GPS. Wherever I happened to be taken, Cannon would be able to track my location. What we hadn't counted on, though, was my necklace getting torn off when I was attacked. I'd managed to grab hold of it, but I hit my head when I was being shoved into the car and it slipped from my grasp. I'm not sure how far we drove after that. In my fuzzy memories, I recall gazing blearily out the car window. That was when I saw the blimp, right after we parked. Yes, it went fine. There was a man talking to someone on a cell phone. Alright, I'll shut her up inside the storeroom. I'll be waiting in the room upstairs. I mean, you'd think they'd put the GPS in something that's not like this giant necklace that's just gonna like... I don't know. There's gotta be different pieces of clothing you were wearing that might have been better suited for that. The man dragged me out of the car and shoved me into some dark storeroom. Then I guess for good measure, he hit me on the head again. That's right. There's more of it coming back to me now. You've spent your life living in a country at peace, in Japan. You couldn't possibly understand me. Kennen again. So it's not like she and I became fast friends right away or anything. The two of us were too different in a lot of ways. Where do you draw the line? What would you protect with your life? What does justice mean to you? A forlorn look came to her face whenever Cannon asked me a new question, and I never had a good answer for any of them. My flimsy grasp on my own personal identity made it hard for us to get along, yet I kept visiting Cannon's place for the duration of my trip. I recall doing the cat's cradle there at the table one time, when we didn't have anything in particular to talk about. Her eyes had gone wide when she saw me deftly manipulating the string with my fingers. Who taught you how to do that? She asked. My mother. My real mother, that is. Cannon furrowed her brow. What do you mean, real? As opposed to my stepmother, I mean. My birth mother died after getting really sick. I was only 5 years old, so I don't remember her that well. I see, Cannon said. Her expression remained unchanged. What about your parents, Cannon? I don't have any. They died during the war. The bluntness of her response made my hands stop, the string still stretched between them. Sensing that we were treading on some serious ground, I hurried to change the subject. Do you have any friends? No. Well, I used to have one. Her use of the past tense made me fear the worst, and I was right. He was killed too, by an arms dealer named Alphard. Her tone was dry, matter of fact. Taking revenge for his death is my sole purpose in life. Despite the gravity of her words, her face was an unreadable mask. She seemed almost incapable of human emotion. So, what sort of person is this Alfred? A destructionist who masquerades as a terrorist. Destructionist? That sure wasn't a term that came up a lot back in Japan. Alfred doesn't believe in God, holds no political ideology. The chaos and destructions just earn money in order to carry out more terrorist acts. So, you're saying that Alfred commits terrorism because it's fun? Cannon nodded. That's why every now and then Alfred changes loyalties. Just when you think you've found ties to some Middle Eastern terrorist organization, turns out the job was for the American CIA. The heck? So Alfred stands for nothing then? Cannon smiled dismissively at my little childish outburst. I couldn't help feel a bit patronized. I can't believe you went with, you got any friends? Oh, no? Topic change. How? Who's... Why don't you tell me more about this person who killed your friend? What? I twiddled my fingers, turning my cat's cradle into a bridge. Cannon's eyes fixed right back on the string. A tiny surge of pride replaced my annoyance. She went quiet, watching closely as I worked my fingers. The tension in the room faded as the silence between us lengthened. My stepmother's the sort of person who couldn't do this sort of thing, I said at last. For some reason I had a sudden urge to talk about my personal life. I guess she cares about herself more than looking after her children. She's not a bad person, though. She gives me weird bits of advice, like telling me to find someone to date, or that a woman's life is defined by a man. Yeah, you're right, that is weird advice. But it's not like I hate her or anything. Would you mind teaching me? Cannon asked softly. What? How to find a guy to date? No. She shook her head, then pointed to the cat's cradle strung between my fingers. Oh, this! So I took her by the hand and started to teach her the cat's cradle. Hey, do you mind if I ask you something? I said after a while. What's that? That friend you mentioned earlier. What was he like? Cannon's fingers went still. It's better if you don't ask. If I tell you, you won't want to come here anymore. That's not true, I insisted. Even though I'm a terrorist, she replied curtly. In case you were unaware, that's one who uses fear and violence to attain political objectives. The term has its origins in the Reign of Terror in 18th century France, known in French as Le Terreur. Alright. I swallowed a sudden lump in my throat, unable to find words. We fight for righteousness, but you people call us terrorists. Righteousness, in the religious sense, the state of being virtuous, free of sin and observant of the proper rules of moral conduct. Not the same as being in the right, though many people equate the two. Am I wrong? She cast a quick look at my face. But I mean, you protected me. My voice wavered as I replied. All I did was take down some thugs. I just didn't want them around. What could I say to that? I just stammered. Nah, I'm just messing with you. Huh? Cannon flashed me a slight condescending grin. I was just joking. Don't worry about it. But I didn't get the sense that everything she said was a joke. Even if calling herself a terrorist was an exaggeration, the world Cannon lived in was unquestionably a dangerous one. I could tell you that from the cold look in her eyes, a look you'd never expect from an ordinary teenage girl. What sort of hardships had she endured to acquire the deadly stare? Having lived all my life in peaceful Japan, I could scarcely imagine. Cannon tried and failed several times to get the cat's cradle right, but she didn't give up. She worked fastidiously, fastidiously by herself, fingers continuing to shift awkwardly about. Okay, here we go. She hooked the string around her fingers and spread her palms. But the string shape just collapsed into a jumbled mess. Confound it. Okay, one more time. You can make this into a game with 2 people, you know. I plucked the strings from Cannon's hands. You pass the strings back and forth. Why don't we try that? It's more fun than doing it by yourself. I wrapped the string around my fingertips. What do you say? Want to give it a go? Cannon looked dubious. The intricately intertwined strings were like the world in a way. What had started as a single thread was now something that couldn't be undone just by pulling on it. I held my hands out, twirling the string around my fingers. Cannon took the pattern from me and spread her palms apart. She made a perfect bridge between her hands. The shy grin that came to her face made her finally look like a normal girl. I followed suit with a childish little laugh of my own. And as if in a blaze of sunshine, the fog that's been hanging over my mind finishes receding. I remember everything. My name is Maria Osawa. My sister is Hitomi Osawa. And Cannon, she's a dear friend who I met in a far-off land. She helped me once, and now it's my turn to help her. I close my eyes as I reflect upon these precious memories, all the dearer for having been lost. Now when I try to picture Cannon, I can do so clearly. It's just as I thought before. My memories are what make me who I am, and I would never choose to forget them. I feel almost as if time had stopped for me while my history was gone, and now it started moving again. I'm finally back to being me. And I have to go. I have to go back there one more time. What? Oh. Huh. End of her story. And... okay, but that's not end of the story, right? That's definitely a chapter end. Does everybody's stories end at different times? Wow. That's really cool. I didn't know that was a thing. Neat. Oh, I can't even access her anymore. Alright, well... let's go with Kano, because I know he shot at Tatano, and we don't know what happened with that. A gunshot rang out from Tatano's gun, but it was a wild shot, fired reflexively as the weapon flew out of his hand. Maria's planet needs her. Oh, thanks, Evelok. A figure had leapt from behind the water storage tank, kicking him in the arm that held the gun. Then, moving almost too fast for the eye to track, the newcomer delivered an elbow strike to Tatano's jaw. This is probably canon. Kano didn't even have the chance to fire his gun. Before he could react, Maria's kidnapper was already laid out on the ground. Without so much as looking back, the girl bolted down the stairs. "Maria!" Cannon shouted. He started to chase after her, but a bright glimmer in the corner of his eye stopped him in his tracks. The strange assailant had drawn a knife and was preparing to slit the unconscious Tatano's throat. Kano quickly brought his gun back to bear. "Stop right there." The knife stopped, mere millimeters from Tatano's neck. Kano was sure that if he hadn't intervened, the detective's throat would have been slit already. The knife wielder pulled back the hood that had been concealing her face. "You. I know you," Kano said, shocked to see that he recognized the attacker. It was the girl who'd been knocked down by the minivan explosion. Why stop me, she asked, her tone iced cold. Weren't you just about to shoot him yourself? I don't have a reason to shoot him anymore. Not now that you've helped Maria escape. Please, put the knife away. Very well. Looks like he's not waking up for a while anyway. The girl withdrew the knife and rose to her feet. Why did you come to Maria's rescue? Because she's my friend, the girl said simply. She's been infected with a virus, Kano said. We have to get her help as soon as possible. He headed for the stairs that Maria had scampered down. Not so fast. Don't move. The girl's sharp tone made Kano stop. What for? He demanded. I thought you wanted to help. I do want to help her, which is why I'm not letting the police get their hands on her. The girl's voice was quiet, but hard as steel. The police are afraid of the Uva virus spreading, which is why they'll certainly place Maria under quarantine. If that happens, there won't be any way to save her. Just who in the world are you? Before I answer that, let's make a deal. Kano waited, non-committal. I have information relevant to this case, the girl continued. I want to make an exchange. Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. An exchange for what? Tell me where Hitomi Osawa is. Hitomi Osawa? Stanley had taken Hitomi into custody. Kano could probably get in touch and ask him where she was, but why do you want to know where Hitomi is? Do we have a deal or not? The girl looked like she was in no mood to argue. Still, if she knew about the Uva virus, she was probably telling the truth about having information. But it was a violation of police policy to leak information on any investigation to a third party. Besides, was it wise to trust this young woman without knowing who she was? Kano weighed his options for a moment before replying. You know what? I'm just gonna tell her. And hope that helps. Alright, I'll tell you, Kano agreed. The girl gave a tiny nod. But first, what's your name? Cannon. Cannon? Kano thought back to the grisly scene at the Foreign Syndicate's hideout. Did she do that? He was almost afraid to wonder. There was still a lingering trace of adolescence in this strange girl's face. It was hard to believe someone so young could be a covert Middle Eastern operative. And yet Kano had seen how quickly she'd been able to render Tateno unconscious. Alright then. Guess I'll go first, Cannon began. There's someone out there trying to get their hands on the antiviral drug. My objective is to eliminate this person, and put a stop to their plan. Kano felt neither surprise nor horror at her use of the term eliminate. After all that had happened today, he realized his sensibilities had gone numb. This person you're after, you're talking about an arms dealer named Alfred, aren't you? Cannon nodded. The Uva virus has been weaponized and tested several times on the battlefield to great effect, she said. The antiviral would render this weapon wholly ineffective. Countries the world over are dying to get their hands on it. Then why did Alfred orchestrate this kidnapping? If the goal is to get the antiviral, why not just steal it from the laboratory? There was a lot about this kidnapping case that still didn't add up. Kano was sure Alfred's plan was hidden in those baffling details. Lab security at Okoshi Pharmaceuticals practically perfect. The place is under surveillance 24 hours a day. Getting to where the antiviral is stored requires bypassing 3 sophisticated electronic locks. Getting the antiviral out is impossible. Unexpectedly, a sly grin appeared on Cannon's face. If you were Alfred, how would you steal it? She asked. Huh? Kano was taken aback by the sudden question. He thought good and hard about how to answer. Okay, I mean, we know if you can't sneak something out, maybe you can sneak something in. Just wait until the drug hits pharmacy shelves. Yeah, if you can't sneak something out, maybe you can sneak something in? Kato hadn't had any particular flash of insight. He just figured the opposite of the obvious might be the answer. To his surprise, Cannon gave a nod. Very astute. Wait, really? 6 days ago, Alfred injected Hitomi Osawa with the Uva virus. What? The tale had taken a sudden, very unexpected turn. So it wasn't only Maria who had been infected, but Hitomi as well? And 6 days ago at that? Wait, hold on. Hitomi Osawa was perfectly healthy earlier today. So that must mean... Exactly. Kenji Osawa administered the antiviral to her. An unsettling thought occurred to Kano. It was supposedly impossible for Osawa to access the antiviral all by himself. But if he'd been able to give it to his daughter, all the same, then that had to mean... He needed Mamoru Tanaka's help to do it, of course, Cannon said. Which is why Alfred bribed Tanaka ahead of time. So that's what happened. Tanaka had been paid off to inject Hitomi with the virus. Getting Osawa to take action at this point wouldn't have been difficult. But why go to such lengths to get the antiviral administered to Hitomi? Why would Alfred have Hitomi infected with the virus only to then have her father cure it? It's been roughly a week since she was given the antiviral. The DDS is still in her body. The what? Essentially, taking blood from Hitomi Osawa now would allow someone to extract minuscule amounts of the antiviral. Kana was stunned. Suddenly, all these seemingly unrelated threads were beginning to form a pattern. So since getting the antiviral itself out of the lab wasn't an option, Alfred must have thought of using a human vessel, he murmured. Which means the thing that Alfred's really after is... Cannon nodded. Yes, Hitomi's blood, she finished. Alfred specifically requested that Hitomi make the ransom handoff, Cannon said. Additionally, the crime syndicate was hired to carry out a relay with the attaché case containing the ransom money. This would disrupt the investigation and distract the police, allowing the kidnappers to target Hitomi in secret. Wait, no, hold on. There was something about the story that still made no sense to Kano. Tell me this, he said to Cannon. I guess probably the obvious, why not just kidnap Hitomi in the first place? That was the key question right there. Why kidnap Maria instead? If Alfred wanted Hitomi's blood, abducting her, not her sister, was the obvious move. Had the kidnappers mistaken Maria for Hitomi? The two were twins after all, so it wasn't inconceivable, but... It's my fault that Maria was kidnapped. Cannon looked away. I contacted her before this all started. I told her about the kidnapping plan, and I gave her a GPS beacon to give to her sister, so that I could track Hitomi's location after she was abducted. But my plan backfired. Maria switched places with Hitomi, and let herself get taken by Alfred. What the hell? Why hadn't Marina taken this to the police? Or if she was so determined to protect her sister, why not just get her to leave town or something like that? There must have been some sort of accident, though, Cannon continued. The GPS was never turned on after the kidnapping, and I wasn't able to track Maria down. But there was something that even Alfred hadn't counted on. Cannon cast a glance over at Tatano. This person right here, she said. So, Tatano had disrupted Alfred's plan by going after Hitomi himself. Considering where it's all led, Cannon continued, Alfred must be panicking about now. But we can't let her down our guard. Even now, I'm sure the mastermind is thinking of some way to fit what this man has done into the master plan. So it's a perfectly imperfect plan. Is that what you're saying? Precisely. Cannon flashed Kano an approving grin. I heard that from Stanley, Kano said. The man who drove you to the hospital earlier. That case officer, huh? Case officer? So that was it. Stanley was CIA. The U.S. Embassy in Akasaka functions as the headquarters for the CIA's Japan branch. As the embassy building is not reliably secure, however, the agency carries out many of its activities in specially constructed embassy annex facilities, often under the guise of cultural exchange organizations. There are reportedly over 100 CIA personnel active in Japan, but given the inherent secrecy involved, the exact number is not officially known. Cutie international agents. Now that Kano thought about it, it all made sense. Since Alfred is an arms dealer with worldwide connections, I don't know what nation might be trying to obtain the antiviral. Obviously, any country that has the viral weapon would want to prevent their enemies from obtaining it. It's no huge surprise that people are butting in to try and stop Alfred's plan. A tiny beeping sound caught Kano's attention. Cannon pulled a PDA from her breast pocket. For those unfamiliar, a PDA is a personal digital assistant. They were popular for a while. Refers to various types of small portable devices for information management. Occasionally also referred to as a handheld PC. Oh man, PDA. That's been a while. Interesting. The GPS I gave Maria has just been powered on. Now I can find her location. Where is she? She's on the move. But why is the GPS suddenly active now? Cannon frowned. At any rate, I've told you what I know. Now tell me where Hitomi is. Alright. Cannon got out his phone and called Stanley. Yeah. This game did come out in 2008. It's still... That's like 10 years ago now. The American was quick to pick up. What's going on? Where's Hitomi? We're on our way to Endo Electronics in Dogenzaka. Endo Electronics? Why are you going there? Kenna was familiar with the dilapidated old storefront. He'd passed by the place countless times. Too long of a story. There's a lot that's happened, Stanley replied. How are things on your end? About as bad as they could be, but I'm getting closer to the truth. Please make sure you keep Hitomi safe. Alfred is after her blood. Her blood? Kanno told Stanley what he'd heard from Cannon. I see. So that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Where is she? Cannon asked as soon as Kanno hung up. She's on her way to an electronics store in Dogenzaka. I see. Cannon checked Maria's location on her PDA. First I need to get Maria, she said. I'll get to Hitomi after that. I'm going with you. Be my guest. With that, Cannon was off and running. We're just gonna leave Tatano unconscious on the roof. Sure. Cannon took one last glance at the unconscious Tatano, then hurried after Cannon as fast as he could. They ran from South Hill and Nanpeidai towards Shibuya Station. As they darted and weaved madly through the narrow side streets, Cannon took an occasional glimpse at her PDA. It felt to Kanno like they must be taking the shortest possible route to Maria's location. He stayed quiet, keeping pace as Cannon led the way. Before he knew it, they were heading up Dogenzaka. In not too long, they'd be at Endo Electronics. Hey, Cannon called out to Cannon. What? She shouted back without turning. Are you sure this is the right area? Are you doubting the GPS? No, it's not that. Kanno scanned the area. It's just that Endo Electronics is right up ahead. What? Cannon stopped abruptly. What are you suggesting? The twins are heading for the same location? That's my guess. Still, what did that actually mean? Kanno hadn't figured that out yet. They took off running again. Before long, Endo Electronics came into view. Cannon stopped in front of the shop door. Right here, she said, glancing again at the GPS. I knew it, Kanno thought. Endo Electronics, the same place Hitomi was headed. Guess we're all winding up together, Cannon said. Or else we've been brought together. She peered keenly at the building and its surroundings. Kanno swallowed hard. We? You think you've been roped into this too? Quite possibly. Cannon flashed a winning smile and started to head into the shop. Hold on, I need to report into HQ. Kanno hurriedly called Kuzu on his cell. Waiting for the shop to explode. Kanno, what's going on? I've located Maria Osawa. Huh? What was that? Kuzu's words came out as a surprised and childish yelp. Come on, Cannon's smile turned on a steely glare. Time is critical. He nodded silently back at her. Kanno, what's the location? Kuzu asked. Where are you? I can't say right now, sir. Please just leave this to me. Hey, now just hold on. But Kanno ignored the director's squawking and hung up. Cannon had already entered the shop. She seemed wholly unconcerned by the idea that she might be playing right into Alfred's hands. Despite her youth, she clearly thought of herself as quite capable. Warily, he followed after her. After navigating a veritable cavern of junk, they came to a door that led to the living area beyond. Cannon quietly opened the door and immediately stepped inside. The home was divided into a dwelling area and a workroom. A man's voice could be overheard from the workroom, raised in anger. Don't you want to save Suzune? Kano and Cannon crept closer. Peering through the next doorway, they saw a tense confrontation in progress. Maria and Stanley were standing there, looking down at a middle-aged man who had restrained Hitomi with a stun gun pressed to her throat. Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. A young man stepped into view, speaking to the older fellow. But do you think this is what she'd want you to do? Kano watched intently, tensing for action. There was so much at risk here. He was about to barge into the workroom when Cannon grabbed him by the shoulder. Let's wait and see how this goes first, she whispered. He realized this was good advice. If they provoked the older man, things could very well take a sharp turn for the worse. They just have to hope the young man could talk him down. Can't jump yet. Ah, we got to the keep out section. For those of you maybe not aware, Suzune is Achi's sister. She's got a heart condition. His dad wants to kill Hitomi so that somehow, if she's just brain dead, he thinks they'll give her heart to Suzune. It's complicated. It's a mess. We're gonna go find out what's going on over there. And she told Stanley and Hitomi what his father had done. As she listened, Hitomi hung her head. Her face was sallow. I'm so sorry, Achi told her. I'm not really sure what to say. He clenched his fist so hard his knuckles popped, struggling to keep his emotions in check. So if I were rendered brain dead, you could help your sister, Hitomi murmured. Oh yeah, that's right. Super rare blood type thing as well. Brain dead, a state where brain function has ceased irreversibly. In Japan, there are 2 conditions for declaring breath death. Is that supposed to say breath death? I don't know. The first is that the patient must be comatose and in a state of apnea, no longer breathing, due to damage to the brain. The second is that the root cause is diagnosed and it is deemed that there is no reasonable treatment that will restore brain function. Okay, breath death maybe seems proper. Stop, Achi said quickly. Please, don't say things like that. A sad look came to Hitomi's face, and she pressed her hand right to her heart. I mean, to find out like this, she turned to Achi, tears glistening in her eyes. I want to help your sister, but we have other things to worry about right now. This time it was Stanley who cut her off. Remember, Alphard is after you, Hitomi. Isn't that what Cannon told you? Yes, she said I was the mastermind's target. Hitomi wiped her tears away from her with her fingertips. So Alphard and Achi's father are after the same thing, Stanley said. Is that just a coincidence? It didn't sound like he thought so. Hold up, Achi growled, leaning in from the back seat. Yeah, my dad's way out of line, but he did what he did for Suzune. He wouldn't work with terrorists. I'm not saying he's deliberately aiding terrorists, Stanley replied coolly. It's common sense that a pro wouldn't get an amateur involved with their plans. That makes it too likely that a clumsy misstep will cause things to fall apart. But then again, that's not the way Alfred thinks. So, actually, the likelihood of failure could be a part of the plan. Achi thought back to what Cannon had said earlier. If you achieve your goals using accidental means, the outline becomes blurred, and it makes it harder for anyone outside looking in to grasp what the actual plan is. Not only have they put together a perfect plan, they've purposely left certain tiny holes in it. So if we assume the plan has failed, this slip-up might be exactly what Alfred wants, Stanley muttered. Sort of an intentional hole, then, Achi said. Stanley snorted. Cannon told you guys that too, huh? If that's the case, then you really are a fool. What did you just call me? Achi barked. If you'd known all along how formidable this opponent is, you should have given Hitomi over to police custody right away. It's only a matter of dumb luck that either of you are still alive right now. Look, luck or not, me and Hitomi have managed to get it by safely. That's all that matters. What exactly is the relationship between you two anyway? You guys dating? Achi and Hitomi exchanged glances. When Hitomi hesitated uneasily, Achi decided he'd better speak up. No, it's not like that. We just happened to run into each other earlier today. Guess I'm not the kind of guy who can abandon someone in trouble. Can't abandon someone in trouble, huh? You sure you're not just trying to make yourself feel self-important? There are plenty of people out there that you can't see who are also in trouble, who are also suffering. If you only help the ones close at hand, what's the point, really? The world's a lot bigger than you can imagine, and there's a lot you're blind to. So what? If I see someone who's in trouble, I'm supposed to just ignore them? Nah, I can't do that. If I see someone who's collapsed from hunger, I'm not gonna just walk on by because there are people starving somewhere else in the world. I'd be like, hey, let me treat you to a beef bowl or whatever. You couldn't have come up with a smarter example, Stanley replied with a tiny laugh. Okay, so maybe I'm an idiot, Achi scowled. My bad, Stanley laughed again. Today's been an interesting day, he said. I was with another fellow earlier who was just like you. Meaning what? Was he an idiot too? Yeah, he was an idiot. Do all you Japanese have that problem? Hardly. My little sister's so smart she'd make your eyes pop out. Well, I'm sure relieved to hear that. If everyone in this country were as dumb as you guys, I might actually start to like this place. Huh? What does that even mean? Talk so I can understand, man, Ashi shot back. When Stanley didn't respond. Instead, he stuck his head out the car window, peering at the road ahead. They were close to Shibuya Station now, and the traffic had ground to a halt. Gridlock again, Stanley grumbled. It's probably better to walk the rest of the way to Endo Electronics. He pulled over to the side of the road. Side of the road. Specifically the shoulder that runs along either side of the traveled portion of the roadway. A place where trash tossed out of the windows of moving cars tend to accumulate. Tossing cigarette butts and empty cans out onto the street can potentially hurt people, and it definitely makes a mess. Please don't litter. We're learning so much from this game tonight. Don't feed goats paper, and don't litter. And she got out of the car, feeling his guts nut up with worry. Pretty soon he was going to have to confront his father. Stanley gave Achi a look. Are you scared about meeting with your father? I'm not scared. First things first, I'm gonna punch him right in the face. Then we can have ourselves a chat. Don't let your emotions get out of control. Your father might be the one with the key players in this case. I don't give a damn about that. Achi took Hitomi by the hand and started walking. They'd gone up and down Dugginsaka so many times today already. Well, this was probably the last time he and Hitomi would make their way up the hill together. Alright. We can either go there faster, or we can go at an easy pace. Let's just... I don't want to go there faster if his anchor's going to be rising. But I don't want to go at an easy pace. Alright, fine. Be angry about it. Just hurry up. His father was wrong. Even if he was acting to save Suzune, he was absolutely wrong. A crime was a crime, regardless of the motive. This was a crime his father needed to atone for. And if he resisted, Achi would take him down even if he had to use his fists. Even if I have to use my fists. Game. Why that sound effect? That hurt. A memory from long ago rose in Achi's mind. A pure white karate gi. Thrusting out with his left fist. Daisuke collapsing to the floor. One of many memories of his father. One of many memories of his father that Achi could not forget. Kneeling before the memorial altar of his mother, Kotone, Achi wept uncontrollably. He clutched his ohajiki tightly in his hand. It's a toy made of small coin-shaped glass beads, somewhat similar to marbles. The typical game involves flicking one's pieces into the opponent's with a fingertip, Specific rules vary greatly by region. Okay. Wait, is that not just, I've forgotten the name of the game that I'm thinking of. Can't I remember the name of the game? Crokinole. Yeah, isn't that just Crokinole with, like, glass beads? Achi had always been rather clingy with his mother. When she was alive, she'd often joined him for ohajuki, origami, and the like. On this particular day, Achi had come home miserable after getting bullied by the neighborhood kids for acting like a wimp. Achi. He turned to see his father, holding 2 cups of shaved ice. Come here for a bit. They sat on the stairs together, eating their sweet frozen confections. You want to get tougher? Daisuke's words were soft and simple. How about you and me get tougher together? Achi looked up at his father, frowning in confusion. How are we going to do that? Well, for starters, how about we learn some karate? Karate? Achi's face twisted up unhappily at the idea. He couldn't even imagine himself punching or kicking anyone. It'll be alright, his dad said. I'll go with you, don't you worry. Daisuke flexed one of his scrawny arms. His biceps bulged up the tiniest bit. Achi was well aware that his father wasn't much of an athlete. There had been an athletics meet at his grade school. Even now, the memory of Daisuke tripping clumsily during the parent participation relay was burned into Achi's mind. Precious bonding, right? This is a really sweet moment. Parent participation. A type of children's event where the parents who have come to watch their children compete are asked to join in with them. Daisuke took part in the tug-of-war, only to get tangled up in the rope and dragged over the line. Achi was understandably disheartened by his father's embarrassing display. But after eating the lunch his father had made for him, his spirits quickly returned. Daisuke had made rice balls that were clumsily oversalted, but Achi could tell how hard he worked to prepare them. Aww. If you're gonna be there. And so the two began training together at a local karate dojo. Achi put on his white gi and fastened his obi tightly. As he did so, he felt as if his feelings were being anchored in place as well. Ichi, ni, san. Achi's gi sleeves made a whooshing sound as he thrust out his fists in time with the sensei's chant. I'm surprised they went with the Japanese words for those. Even simple kata practice had him feel like he was getting stronger somehow. His dad, having left Suzune in the care of their neighbors, was working up a sweat alongside him. But he was out of shape, and his technique was shaky. He was soon exhausted and went to lean up against the dojo wall. Achi stepped out of the training circle and called out to his father. Dad, are you okay? Yeah. I'm just gonna take a little break. Daisuke sounded like he was on the edge of hyperventilating. Thanks, Dad. Huh? What for? For asking me to come take karate lessons with you. Achi was sure he'd never have dared to go to the dojo alone. Hey, just so long as you're liking it. Now go on and get back to training. With a deep bow, Achi resumed his kata practice. As they were walking home from the dojo, Achi turned to his father. How come you want to get stronger, Dad? He asked. You're not getting bullied by your friends. Daisuke was quiet for a few moments. Before answering, his words came out awkward and embarrassed. I was picked on a lot when I was your age too, Achi. I had a friend who would always come and bail me out. A friend? Yeah, a friend. A distant look came to his father's eyes. He was a real fighter. I always looked up to him. I wanted to be strong like him. His expression turned lonely. I don't get to see him anymore, though. Why not? Achi asked. Did he die? No, nothing like that. Then did you guys have a fight? Something like that. Daisuke smiled sadly. He stared out into the sky for a while before speaking up again. His name's Tatano. Hmm? My friend. That's his name. Achi's father increased his pace. Come on, he said. We have to go and pick up Suzune. After that, despite Achi's questions, Daisuke would say no more about his old friend. By the time he was almost done with grade school, Achi had grown up fit and strong, almost unrecognizable from his younger self. Perhaps he'd had the physical knack in him all along. He was chosen as the representative for the boys' karate team, even managing to take second place in a national tournament. Nobody bullied Achi anymore. One time, Daisuke suggested that the two of them do some sparring. Achi may have been a national competitor, sure, but he was still a grade schooler squaring off against an adult. His father had been training for close to 2 years now as well, and his confidence had grown accordingly. Achi was excited to be able to face off against his old man. Early on in their karate training, Achi's kumite had seemed rather hopeless. He'd been shocked that his out-of-shape father was able to overpower him, but also pleased to get a sense of how strong the man was. This time, Achi thought he might well lose again, but he was going to go all out. As they adopted their fighting stances, Daisuke's face was full of confidence. The instructor gave the signal to begin, and Achi opened with a sharp low kick. Daisuke didn't guard against it. The blow caught him in the thigh. It looked to Achi like he'd allowed himself to take the hit, not fearing the effect of a child's kick. Achi proceeded to unleash several more low kicks to the same spot. Bit by bit, Daisuke's face revealed his discomfort. Finally, he yanked his leg away. That was when Achi realized his father wasn't letting himself get hit on purpose. He was just unable to keep up with the speed of his son's footwork. If that was the case, Achi felt bad about exploiting his dad's weakness. He decided to leave his leg alone. Instead, he aimed a punch at his father's midsection. He was shocked by the impact as the blow struck home. He hadn't attacked with a great deal of force. He'd just thrown a light midsection punch as a check. But as Achi pulled back his fist, Daisuke crumpled to the floor, writhing in pain as he clutched his gut. Achi stared in disbelief at his own hand. That was the last day that Daisuke went to the dojo. Your dad's pathetic. Yeah, he's such a loser. Achi was on his way home from practice, and some older students from the dojo had started ribbing on him. What did you just say? These kids were middle schoolers, but Achi wasn't about to back down. He thrust out a quick punch, stopping it just short of one boy's nose. Go on, say that again. I'll kick your ass. The older boys went pale, then took off and ran. But this small victory did nothing to bolster Achi's spirits. His father had looked so small and lonely, heading away after quitting karate. But Achi didn't think there was anything pathetic about that. Sure, maybe by now he was better at karate than his father, but really what difference did that make? Ugh. So sharp. The noises of memories. In growing stronger, he'd learned something. Using force to win out over someone else didn't mean anything. Strength alone didn't determine a person's worth. Achi loved and respected his father for going to the dojo with him. Beating him in a karate match didn't change the way he felt. Achi resurfaced from his memories to hear Stanley talking on his phone. I see, so that's what's going on. Once we're finished with the things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Curious, Achi turned to the American. What was that about just now? Stanley's reply was clipped. I know what they're after now. With that, Stanley proceeded to wrap up his phone call. Guess I'm not going to get much out of this guy, Achi thought. By now they could see Endo Electronics up ahead. Ashi was about to hurry inside when Stanley stopped him. I'll go in first. You two wait out here. No way! This is my dad we're talking about. And you don't think it's dangerous to bring Hitomi right to him? Well, alright. We'll wait here for a bit, and once we know it's safe, we'll head on in. Cool with that? I'm cool with that. Stanley stepped inside. Achi fussed about impatiently, staring at the entryway. The palm of his clenched fist was sweating. Never before in his life had he wanted to just deck his old man. Hitomi watched him uneasily. Hitomi? Yes? I'm sorry. I really don't want you to have to see this, but I think you're about to witness the crowning shame in Endo family history. Achi, don't say that, Hitomi said. She squeezed his hand. He found his other fist unclenching. Please, you have to try to talk to your father. Yeah, I know. Suddenly there was a loud crash from inside the building. The time for waiting had passed. Let's go. Achi and Hitomi raced inside. Barging into the living quarters without bothering to shed his shoes, he heard his father's voice coming from the workroom. Dad! Achi hurried through the workroom door and saw Stanley holding his father pinned across the desk. Let me go! Please let me go! Daisuke thrashed both of his legs. Stanley, please, let my father go. I want to talk to him. Stanley snorted dismissively, but did as was asked. Daisuke stood up, rubbing at a sore wrist. Dad, please, you have to tell me. Where is Maria? Maria? What are you talking about? Daisuke wouldn't meet his eyes. Don't play dumb with me, and she pointed at Hitomi. You know who this is, don't you? Hitomi Osawa, the girl you've been after. Maria's her sister. But Daisuke remained silent. You're gonna pretend you didn't call the hospital? Nothing about maybe being able to get your hands on a heart? I mean, seriously, it's all so simple. Even I can tell what's been going on. You've been watching me and Hitomi through the surveillance cameras. And you were telling the guy with the cane where we were. The blood began to drain from his father's face. Don't you go quiet on me. If I'm wrong, then go ahead. Tell me the truth. Daisuke's arm shot out suddenly, knocking an external hard drive from his desk onto the floor. It was over and done before Stanley could stop him. Stanley hunched down and picked up the shattered drive. I'm guessing there was important data on here? Footage from the cameras, maybe. I have no idea what you're talking about, Daisuke spat. Can't do this to an innocent person, Dad, Achi shouted, grabbing his father by the collar. There was the sound of footsteps from out in the shop. Someone was quickly getting closer. Stanley grabbed Hitomi by the hand and pulled her back against the wall. Achi stiffened as he turned his gaze to the door. What is this? If Yanagishita shows up right now, I'm gonna lose it. Okay. Like the CIA couldn't recover that data. Yeah, right? Oh no, the hard drive fell on the floor. Well, guess it's broken forever. Alright, let's go check out Norikawa. TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What? What does this mean? Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hannah told us herself the van explosion was her father committing suicide. Didn't she? The only explanation I can think of, Norikawa replied, is that Hannah was lying. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why, Chiaki said. Ozu let out a snort. Has his picture always been so dirty? No, Minorikawa's gotten, like, his outfit's been getting dirtier every chapter. Because, it's particularly been dirty lately because he was near the van explosion. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual, using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Narakawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive, and if he was still alive, then there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time with a big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on out, it should be smooth sailing. Well, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing as Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait here for him. He sat back down on the sofa. But Segawa leaned threateningly toward Chiaki. Hey, he snarled. You sure you don't know where the guy's hiding out? I don't, Chiaki shot back. And even if I did, I'd never tell you. Yeah, right, that's always a good idea. Say what now? He leaned in even closer just as she stood on her tiptoes in defiance, and their foreheads collided with a dull thud. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. Just calm down, Chiaki, Minorukawa said as he began rooting through Toyama's desk. For now, I'm going to look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your article. Oh? Ozu raised an eyebrow. Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for next month's issue. Can't do that without the editor-in-chief's approval. What Minorukawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-Star General Gossip. He was pretty sure the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that the scientist had been asking for, he'd be able to get his big lead about the power balance of the world being at stake. And if he could get that, not only would next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found a file folder full of early material and began quickly flipping through it. It didn't take him long to find the article. Floundering Okoshi Pharmaceutical arranges marriage of political convenience. The large headline practically jumped off the page. Minorukawa quickly read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. The corporate director of Okoshi Pharmaceutical had sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. That must be what Osawa wanted him to look into. The guy his wife had been dating before they were married. It should be easy enough to just ask whoever had written the article. Minorukawa's gaze jumped to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. Hey, ain't you done yet? Sagawa yelled. Tell us where Toyama is already. Yeah, Minorukawa thought. We're going to need to do something about these guys. I'm still looking into it, he said. Just hold on. He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electrical and gas bills, noodle house delivery menus, and the like. Look faster, Sagawa growled. Butter the guy up. Maybe he could mollify this guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. Let's go with A. For now, Minorukawa decided he'd better butter this guy up. Say, you look like a pretty tough guy. You work out? Sagawa grinned, thrusting his fist out in an emphatic air punch. I used to be a boxer. Oh, really? Back in his boxing days, Sagawa was so tough, people called him the dog fighter of Shibuya. One day, however, as he was walking along, he happened to step onto a strange panel that made him fall into a state of confusion and go on a rampage. He was quickly arrested, and his boxing license was revoked. This mysterious panel Sagawa stepped on. They say there are also panels shaped like feet, and even panels shaped like rice balls. Wait. I'm sorry, what? Is this some weird video game reference I'm not getting? I don't understand. Game? Yeah, this is probably a reference to a specific game. I could drop a guy like you in one punch. Oh ho, guess there aren't many folks who can give you a good fight then. Sagawa dropped into a fighting pose and threw a few quick jabs. Fun fact needs an additional fun fact. Yeah, no joke. Well, matter of fact, I'm unbeatable in a street fight. They call me the Crazy Tiger of Shibuya. Shibuya, huh? You familiar with SOS then? Sagawa's face twisted into a sneer. What? Those guys? I mean, I've heard they're pretty tough too. Only one of them who'd be able to give me a fight would probably be that Achi Endo. Except as I hear it, he's left the gang. Aha, really now? Heard anything else interesting? Sounds like nowadays they're being run by some guy named Susumu. The name Susumu rang a bell. Those two young punks who'd been arguing after the fan explosion had mentioned him. Seems like SOS is a pretty rough state since Achi left, though, Sagawa added. Minorukawa didn't miss a beat. What do you mean, rough state? Back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes. Never shake folks down or steal or any of that stuff. Guess their founder Achi hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble, hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is not to get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scarier bunch around here when there's a lot of them together. And their main hangout that's at Inferno, yeah? Yeah, over in Harajuku. Known as Urahara, Hara for short, the area east of the Japan Rail Harajuku Station, around where Takeshita Dori meets Meiji Dori. There are many small clothing and accessory stores here, set up in renovated houses. Most of these shops are on the cutting edge of youth fashion, offering quirky and unique means of personal expression. Man, you been listening out on the street? What gives? Harajuku, huh? Minorukawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Sagawa's eyes went wide. Aha! So that's where Toyama is. Wait, nah. No way a coward like him would go to a place like that. Jackie looked up from her keyboard. Look, can you please shut up? No, you shut up. And then the phone rang. That's my phone. Minorukawa pulled his cell phone out of his pocket. It was Toyama's name in the incoming call screen. Minorukawa's heart skipped a beat. Toyama, where are you? He blurted out as he picked up. Chiaki Ozu Sagawa turned to look at him as one. Well, what were you thinking faking your death like that? Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do is delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt. So I thought if I made it look like I was dead. Minorukawa let out an exasperated sigh. Well, everyone already knows you're still alive, so your little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time. What? Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. Alright, listen up, Minorukawa said. If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that back real soon. What do you mean? I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1 million copies and still sell out if we can run it as an article. Toyama perked right up. Wait, you really mean it? Hey, Only Angel X! How's it going? Thank you for that raid. Look at all those great emojis. Emotes? Hearts. Look at all those good hearts. What were you playing tonight? If you're new, my name is Heather. I'm currently in the middle of a game called 428. It's a visual novel. I think we're getting close to the end. I'm not really sure. Don't know how long this game goes. Apex Legends. Ah. Yeah. Apex Legends looks like a lot of fun. I mean, I don't do shooters, but it looks like fun. Alright. I'll give you all the details. Just get your butt back here. But aren't those loan sharks there at the office right now? Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are. The two thugs crowded nearer, a predatory gleam in their eyes. And Minorukawa had a flash of inspiration. Got it, he said quickly before Toyama could respond. Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now. Don't go anywhere. Ozu and Sagawa grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. Heh, Minorukawa said as their footsteps receded. Those guys took the bait. I sent them to Miyashita Park. He allowed himself a cocksure grin. Right then. So, where are you really, Toyama? Oh, the next line's gonna be like, I'm at this park that you totally just sent them to, isn't it? You imbecile. I am at Miyashita Park. Yeah, knew it. What? Minorikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. What the hell are you doing someplace like that? Why the hell did you tell them Miyashita Park? I thought it would be a clever ruse. Well, it wasn't. This is no time to be fighting, Chiaki butted in. Yeah, you're right, Minorikawa scowled. Only Angel X, thank you for that 6-month resub. Oh, can you believe it? Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need to get you out of there and go someplace we can talk. I can meet you there. Right, okay. They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where? Minorikawa thought. Familiar cafe by the station. Noodle house from the menu. Nothing suitable came to mind. Probably Toyama should decide. Let's go to the station cafe. The familiar cafe by the station was a natural choice. He quickly described the location. Okay, Toyama said. Cafe Lautrec, got it. I'll see you there. He hung up and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Chiaki, how's that copy coming along? Well, almost done? Just a little more, I think. Alright, bring your computer and come with me. I'll read over what you've got so far. Minorikawa waited as Chiaki got ready to head to the cafe. As the two were heading out of the office, however, someone else opened the door. Dun dun dun. You've got 14 minutes and 57 seconds left to send to press. Oh no. The writer submits to the editor. The editor submits to the designer. This is the next step in the whole handoff process. Naturally, being late for this causes quite a lot of trouble. 56. 55. Who's this? A slender man with a gaudy necktie entered the room, sat down on the nearest desk, staring fixedly at his pocket watch. Minorikawa narrowed his eyes dubiously. Who the hell are you? Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. That's just common decency. The man gave no indication he'd even heard Minorikawa's question. I suppose I can wait here, he continued. Just for another 14 minutes and 20 seconds. Mr. Mino? Is this guy talking about our submission? Chiaki stared doubtfully at the newcomer. Hey you, Minorikawa asked. Are you from the printer? But the man did not reply. Don't ignore me. Are you from the printer? Still, the man remained silent. Minorikawa was furious. Look, cut the crap, he roared. In response, the man quietly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his business card. My name is not Hey You. He handed the card to Minorikawa. It read, Cho Nippon Printing Company Limited, Sales Department Division Number 1, Koichiro Katayama. I'm Koichiro Katayama, newly assigned to Heaven Publishing. A pleasure to meet you. My predecessor is in the hospital due to a car accident. Predecessor, Sachio Usu, 39 years old, single. You know, in case... A long-time veteran at Cho Nippon Printing, rather timid by nature. The strain of dealing with publishers makes him sick to his stomach. At around 1:10 p.m. earlier today, while driving to meet with one of his clients, he had to swerve to avoid a young man and woman who darted into the street. He crashed into the car next to him and ended up at the hospital. Thanks, Achi. Wow, that was way earlier in the game. He should make a complete recovery in about 2 months. Well, what are you doing here, Katayama? Minorikawa asked. I thought we had until 8 o'clock to complete proofreading. 8 o'clock? Surely you must be joking. Our company's proofing deadline is 5:30. Katayama stared fixedly back at Minorikawa. Now that had to be a joke. I heard from the editor-in-chief that it was 8 o'clock. I take that to mean, then, that you don't have any copy for us. It's not that we don't have it, Minorikawa said. It's just not finished yet. Just hold on until 8. Katayama raised an eyebrow. No. Publisher and printer need to work in concert. Perhaps my predecessor was the sort to delay the proofing deadline, owing to your circumstances here. But now I'm in charge, and I do not make exceptions. The proofing deadline is 5:30 sharp, and I intend to keep it that way. And while we've been having this discussion, you're down to 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Katayama held out his pocket watch, as if to emphasize the point. That's ridiculous, Minorikawa exclaimed. Just who the hell do you think you are? You guys are going to be printing a paper that I wrote. Do you even know how lucky that makes you? So just wait, okay? Just give us... 3 more days. 8 o'clock. Just give us until 8 o'clock. That was the original understanding. It was unfair to change it now. 8 o'clock, And where's your guarantee that you'll finish by then? We will, just trust me. I'm supposed to heedlessly trust the word of a man I've just met? Katayama mused. We're down to 10 minutes and 46 seconds, by the way. You son of a bee. Don't get all high and mighty just because you work for the printer. High and mighty? I'd say it's the people on the publishing side of things that act high and mighty. Whatever high-minded claims you might make without us, you'd have nothing to put on the store shelves. Forgetting that and blithely ignoring your proofing deadline makes for more work on our end. Just what are you getting at, I wonder? Now it's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Narakawa ground his teeth so hard he could hear it. His usual tactics were useless here. Katayama was simply too unflappable to be browbeaten. Let me back down now, though. It was game over. 10 minutes and 7 seconds remaining. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. That's just common decency. Common decency. Katayama's pet phrase. Thus far, he has said, that's just common decency 3 times in this story. Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. There was one more. Do you know when and where it was? This has been a fun quiz part of the game, but we're gonna ignore it. Katayama's eyes were once again locked on his pocket watch. It was no use. Minorikawa couldn't find a way to talk this guy around. It's a bad end. Oh. Chiaki held her hand up. May I say something? Maybe it's not a bad end. Maybe we're okay. Isn't it also common decency not to break a promise once it's been made? If you're referring to the 8 o'clock deadline, I was not the one who promised that. Maybe not, but I believe your predecessor's responsibilities become your responsibilities? Katayama crossed his arms and gave her a bemused look. What's your name, miss? Chiaki, she said bashfully. Chiaki Uso. The printer's expression brightened visibly. Good. That timid hesitation of yours is just splendid. You have none of the arrogance so typical among publishers. Huh? Chiaki was taken rather aback. In deference to your polite demeanor, I shall wait until 7 o'clock. That is the latest I can possibly allow. All right, Minorikawa shouted, practically in Katayama's face. We agree to those terms. No, I wasn't talking to... But we've got terms of our own. Chiaki is great. Katayama reeled ever so slightly. I'm not certain you're in any position to set terms here. Just shut up and listen. From here on out, you're coming with us. What? Why? We're going to finish up our copy on site, then burn the data onto CD and hand it over to you there. That's why. Katayama let out a sigh of resignation. Oh, very well. I suppose I'd simply be waiting here anyway. Minorikawa pumped his fists in victory. Alright, Chiaki, go and copy the DTP data we've got so far onto your computer. Sure thing, Mr. Mino. Chiaki quickly set about copying the data from the editing department's desktop. Okay, done. Let's go. With the others in tow, Minorikawa headed for the cafe where Toyama would be waiting. And then everything was okay, right? They reached Cafe Lautrec without incident, and Minorikawa promptly spotted the publisher. Over here, Toyama hissed, eyeing his surroundings with obvious unease. Hannah sat by his side, sullenly sipping on some juice. The waitress came over as Minorikawa joined them. May I take your order, she asked. Water. Just water, sir? Fine. Make it a double. Exasperated, the waitress headed back to the kitchen. Toyama looked over at Katayama. Who's this guy? I'm Koichiro Katayama from Cho Nippon Printing. Katayama presented his business card. Toyama turned to Minorikawa with a quizzical look. What's someone from the printer doing with you? I'll explain later. There's no time for that right now, Minorikawa replied. She's got lace all over her computer. It's not... what I would do, because I feel like it'd just get wrecked, but it's cute. First, I need to answer some questions. Does the name Kenji Osawa ring any bells? Osawa? Toyama closed his eyes and thought. He heads up a laboratory at Okoshi Pharmaceutical. You ran a piece on him in the first ever issue of 4-Star General Gossip? Toyama's face lit up with recognition. Ah, yes, the political marriage piece. Yeah, that one. Do you remember the details from the article? Of course. Who do you think I am? Toyama puffed himself up proudly. I used to be a local news copy editor for the Central Times. I've got the details for all the stuff I've ever covered here in my head. In that case, do you know who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married? Toyama blinked his eyes vacantly. What's the matter, Minorikawa asked. This is a pretty tough pop quiz you're giving me. Pop quiz! Surprise, kids! It's time for a science quiz! What colorless, odorless, lighter than air, and used for consumer and municipal gas applications is also known as marsh gas or swamp gas? Is it helium, ethylene, propane, methane? Tune in next time for the answer. Cut the crap, man. You just said you have all the details inside your head. I hope we find another fun fact that tells us the answer to the pop quiz. Because if we don't, that's just weird. Yeah, that part's weird. Oh, they're in there alright. They're just not coming out. Minorikawa slumped. Mr. Toyama, please. Whether or not you'll be able to pay off your debts depends on your memory here. Hearing this, Hannah cast a cold glare up at her father. Alright, I can remember. Or I can at least try. Toyama folded his arms and hummed to himself. His gaze turned inward. So... I feel like it was a really common name. Sato, Chiaki chirped. Yamada! Was it either of those? They're pretty common names. But Toyama shook his head. Norikawa offered a guess of his own. Tanaka? No, not that. Oh. It was something else. Just then, the television inside the cafe switched over to a news report on the Shibuya explosion. The remains of the individual discovered within the minivan itself, who have since been identified as pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. Mamoru Tanaka? Toyama turned around to look at the TV. No, I said Tanaka! An image of the victim's face appeared on the screen. What? The publisher blurted, nearly falling out of his seat. That's it. It was him, right there. Mamoru Tanaka. That's what I said. Tanaka. Toyama pointed excitedly at the TV screen. That's who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married. Mamoru Tanaka. Minorikawa felt himself getting goosebumps. The victim of the terrorist bombing in Shibuya was linked to the researcher who was the key to a terrorist viral scare? His reporter's hunch was now a certainty. Right now, Shibuya was at the center of some massive conspiracy. This went far beyond even a major scoop. Mr. Toyama, we need to make sure that next month's issue hits shelves. Minorikawa called up Kenji Osawa to let him know the results of his little investigation. Cool, we have a jump point. The man didn't seem terribly surprised. Probably, he'd had his suspicions all along. Osawa told him that there was something he needed to do before he was ready to give details on the big scoop, but that he would call back later. I mean, we kind of guessed that it was Tanaka, 2 or 3 chapters back? In the meantime, Minorikawa knew he'd have his hands full getting the current issue of the gossip wrapped up for 7 o'clock deadline. He slapped his hands down on the table. Alright, emergency editing meeting, right here, he announced. We need to get a lead-in on the Shibuya terrorist bombing into the next issue. The article about the twins winning the beauty contest can be dropped for that. We'll use the info from Kenji Osawa as the basis for our big scoop on the issue after that. Mr. Toyama, any problems with that? No, that should be fine. But what about the remaining pages for next month's issue? Minorikawa opened the file on his computer. The layout built in the DTP came up on the monitor. The report on the Burning Hammer sales demo, the surveillance camera opinion piece, the interview with Orai. Those 3 were finished, the copy already incorporated into the layout. Once Chiaki's street interview piece was loaded in, That one could be checked off as well. Chiaki, how's your copy coming along? I'm sorry, I just need a little bit longer. The writing seemed to still be giving her a fair bit of trouble. The article on SOS was still just a placeholder in the layout, and Minarakawa hadn't even gotten any material for that, putting it even further behind than Chiaki's street interviews. Still, he at least learned where Shibuya's legendary street gang made their hangout. He'd just have to take the risk of dropping in on them unannounced to ambush them with some interview questions. And then there was the lead-in for Shibuya bombing. That wasn't even in the layout yet. It was a completely blank slate. Against all odds, they were going to need to put that article together from nothing with just an hour and change. It was an impossible amount of work for just him and Chiaki to do. Well, well, well. And how are things coming along? Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Minarakawa hurried to cover the screen. Don't look! If the printer rep saw all the blank pages, he might decide to stop waiting. Would you mind telling me roughly what percent of the total you've completed thus far? What percent? Come off it, man. We're at 100%. If you're at 100% done, that implies you're all finished. Could I please have the data then? No. I'm saying our willpower is at 100%. I'm not even going to pretend I understand what you mean by that. Shaking his head, Katayama sat back down in his chair. Minarakawa, Toyama asked, his expression uneasy. So I know I asked before, but why is someone from the printer here again? Katayama promptly chimed in. The long and short of it is that your proofing deadline has been changed to 7 o'clock, he said. What? But that's impossible. Who's doing the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing? Toyama eyed Minarakawa, and then Chiaki. Both stared back noncommittedly. Then it really is impossible. We'll never meet the deadline. We don't have enough people. No, we do have enough people. Minarakawa thrust out his finger. Mr. Toyama, you're going to write that one, and handle the layout. What? Heaven Publishing is your company. Won't you step up in order to protect it? Toyama hung his head. Even if I head to the scene right now, I'm sure the other outlets have already gotten their coverage. I wouldn't be able to find anything new to write about. Whoa, video! Violent. And so you're just gonna give up? A moment later, Toyama was on the floor, Minarakawa glaring down at him. You've always said you wanted to tell the world about the things the mass media can't or won't write about. So what the hell difference does it make if they've already gotten the sound bites thereafter? Minarakawa's voice was raw with emotion. Don't you dare give up. Not that easily. Get your ass out there. Find something that only you can write about. Minarakawa. Toyama began to object. Then he glanced over at Hana. There was an imploring look in her eyes as well. I get what you're saying, Toyama grumbled. But still, you're expecting a lot. But then, despite his words, he flashed a broad grin. Yeah, Minarakawa let out a quiet chuckle. And it's got you all fired up. Yeah, I'm fired up alright. Toyama's face shone with a resolve Minarakawa hadn't seen in a long time. There we go. That's the Toyama I know. You know I'm really sorry. Now I see the huge burden I put on you. But damn it, it's gonna be alright. Getting to his feet, Toyama took his daughter by the hand and strode boldly out of the cafe, looking like a changed man. Minarakawa watched them go, glad the dithering was over. Even if Toyama were still in his prime, he'd be cutting it close to do that article in an hour. But he would pull through somehow. When it came to taking care of Hana, the man would rise to the occasion again and again. Father and daughter disappeared into the crowd, hand in hand. Minarakawa shook himself out of his reverie. All right, he cried. Despite the clear blue sky, an unexpected gust of wind blew across his cheek. Come on, guys, we gotta get going too. Things might look grim, but he wasn't gonna give up until the bitter end. It was time to head to the SOS hangout, Inferno. The three ran long and hard after leaving the cafe. If the proofing deadline was 7 o'clock, then they needed to finish up with SOS by 6:30 at the latest. The gang's hangout was in Uraharajuku. Running all the way there on foot was going to eat into too much of their time. But traffic was at a near standstill for some reason, and there wasn't a taxi in sight. How long do you plan on running like this? Katayama called out, panting. Just take a look at the road. With this traffic, there's no point in hailing a cab. Even Minoru Kawa was feeling the time pressure now. We're just gonna have to keep running until the road's clear. What? Katayama wailed. Stop your whining. Just keep quiet and stick with me. He'd finally gotten Toyama to find his willpower again. Next month's issue would come out on time, and no way was some printer guy going to mess that up now. But the traffic showed no signs of abating. Catching a cab wasn't going to be an option. Fighting an ever louder echo of despair, Minoru Kawa kept up his desperate headlong rush. Headlong rush! To rush into a situation recklessly or heedlessly. Not quite the same as being a daredevil. Still, there were limits to how far his mind could push the body before exhaustion set in. Eek. Dead. As they were running across a pedestrian overpass, Chiaki slipped and took a nasty fall. She skinned her knee hard enough to draw blood. Hey you, Minoru Kawa snapped at Katayama. Don't just stand there. Help the poor girl already. Katayama scurried over to Chiaki. I'm sorry, Mr. Mino. Chiaki's voice bubbled with suppressed tears. Maybe it was cruel to make her run with her computer all the way to Yura Harajuku, but the copy for her interview still needed to be looked over. They couldn't just leave her here. Minoru Kawa hesitated, undecided. Even at a full run, they wouldn't make it in time, and with traffic the way it was, there was nothing they could do. You now have... Katayama consulted his pocket watch. Exactly 1 hour remaining. Damn it, Minoru Kawa raged. What do we do? Relentlessly, the clock ticked on. Did we make it to the end of the chapter, or is this a bad end? Oh, nope, chapter end. It's all fine, sort of. Alright, that leaves Osawa. And then we gotta do some jumping around. The rain won't let up. The sound is growing louder and louder inside my head. It is the sound of regret spattering against my heart. My emotions surge like a terrible storm within me. I never wished for this. Never expected my heart to be dragged so far beyond my control. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. The words stormed through Osawa's mind in a relentless cacophony. He'd called up images of the bodies from the human testing trials on his computer monitor. He couldn't help but imagine his daughter in the same gruesome state. In just a few more hours, Maria would begin hemorrhaging blood and die just like the people in these pictures had. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. He couldn't shake the words or the reality from his mind. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Osawa began pounding his fists fiercely on the desktop. Sir, what are you doing? Kajiwara tried to intervene, but he kept on pounding away. When he finally ceased, the pain of the repeated impacts lingered in his hands. My research was never about any sincere desire to help people, and now I'm paying the price for that. The one time it finally matters, I can't even save my own daughter. Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara set a hand on his shoulder. You can always blame yourself later, but for now, think again, good and hard. Is there really no other way to save Maria? Nothing else we could try? Osawa shook his head. The only means we had left was using Tanaka's password to unlock the doors, and now Tanaka is dead. There's no other way? Is there a possibility that Mr. Tanaka told someone else his password? This was something Osawa hadn't considered. Was there anyone Tanaka might have shared his password with? Only one person came to mind. Well, yes, there may be someone. You're referring to I, sir. Kajiwara cast his eyes down. You figured that out then? Yes. back during the commotion over that listening device. A necktie clip isn't typically the sort of present one gives to one's husband's coworker. And yet, although some might consider it somewhat, inappropriate, Mr. Tanaka was wearing it as if it were a matter of course, which, implies something about their relationship. Kajiwara. He might be full of bananas, but he's good at his job. Kajiwara's voice trailed off. He coughed apologetically and tried again. I realize it's an awkward situation, sir, but please check with your wife. Even if I does happen to know the password, that does us no good if Maria gets quarantined someplace we can't reach her. I understand, Mr. Osawa. I'll bring Maria to you then. I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. Have a whole bunch of bananas. The detective then produced a bunch of bananas from his pocket. This is like, what, 8 bananas throughout this whole day that he's pulled out? Maybe 9 at this point? What kind of banana pocket dimension do you have? Because I need to talk to whoever you get your pockets from. These are all left over. He's really doling them out. You're more than welcome to them, sir. Despite his gentle smile, the rest of his face was firm with resolve. You said you didn't care whether other people understood you. Didn't you, Mr. Osawa? Osawa nodded, guardedly. At the risk of being presumptuous, sir, I understand you, Kajiwara said. I used to be quite the workaholic myself. You're just like me, innocent and awkward. Just like me. On another occasion, Kajiwara was shocked to run into a man who looked just like him. The fellow was a stylist at a hair salon Kajiwara visits on occasion. He let out a gasp of surprise of his own upon seeing the detective. Kajiwara felt a peculiar connection and was expecting to go to the salon regularly. But when the stylist was asked what he did for a living, and Kajiwara answered honestly that he was a detective, the other man's face went pale and he bolted out of the building. Kajiwara never saw the man again after that. Aw, he just wanted to be friends. Calling yourself innocent, huh? How modest of you. Osawa let out a sardonic chuckle, and after a moment, Kajiwara joined in. The next time I see you, Mr. Osawa, I'll have Maria with me. The detective gave a slight bow, then left the study, a look of determination on his face. Osawa watched him go with admiration. No matter what trouble arose, the man always looked for something he could do. Something banana-related. He really was a fellow who knew how to hang tough. Compared to that, I'm just... Osawa couldn't even articulate his own self-disgust. And asking Ai about the password would also mean inquiring into her relationship with Tanaka. The prospect was daunting. Venturing into the emotional territory of another person was his weakest suit. He left his study, but somehow found himself making his way to Maria's room, not Ai's. He realized that he hadn't been into his daughter's room since a certain rainy day years before. Now he stepped quietly inside and saw Maria's world laid out before him. A small photo was set atop her neat and tidy desk. It was a close-up of someone's hands doing a cat's cradle. Whose hands were they? From the skin tone, they didn't appear to be Maria's. Several more photographs were pinned to a corkboard that hung on a wall. They were snapshots of people and townscapes from the Middle East. One glanced at them, and Osawa felt like he was back there for a moment. The images weren't necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but they all looked like they'd been taken by a professional. When he spotted the last photo on the corkboard, however, he was certain that Maria had taken them all. Ah. The last picture was of Osawa himself. He was facing the camera, holding some luggage and flashing an awkward smile. It was a comical, affectionate image. He'd never known that photography was one of his daughter's hobbies. No, this went beyond a mere hobby. Did she perhaps aspire to be a professional photographer one day? She certainly had the aptitude for it from the look of things. Maria, a photographer. As he mulled the idea over, Osawa felt his chest tighten. Right now, it looked like Maria's hopes and dreams were about to be snuffed out. Her future consisted of bleeding to death a few short hours from now. Osawa stared vacantly out the window. The view from Maria's room remained unchanged from so long ago. Again, that rainy day crept back into his mind, as vivid as the present. See, we can do flashback scenes without piercing, screeching noises. On that day, Osawa was dealing with some pressing business from work. He ensconced himself in his study, wrestling with some paperwork, when Hitomi barged in, looking distraught. Maria's gone. Sensing that Hitomi was legitimately alarmed, Osawa hurried to Maria's room. He found a letter she'd left atop her writing desk. Dad, you only care about Hitomi. You're always working and you never do anything with me, so I'm running away. A few hours earlier, he'd canceled their weekend trip to the amusement park. He just wasn't going to be able to get his work done in time. Hitomi had resigned herself readily enough, but Maria just couldn't accept it. She'd been looking forward to it for so long, she railed at him. How many times now had he broken one of his promises to her? Hitomi understands why we can't go, so why can't you do the same? The cold rebuke had ended her complaining, but it was clear she still didn't accept the situation. Now Hitomi helped him look around, but they found nothing missing from Maria's room. Despite her assertion that she was running away then, it seemed like there was no point in being overly concerned. Maybe she's at the park she always goes to. Hitomi looked worried. The park was roughly a 25-minute walk from the house. It would only take about an hour for Osawa to go and get her and bring her home. But an hour was more than he could afford to spare right now. Dad, I think she's waiting for you to go after her. Osawa didn't need Hitomi to tell him that. He knew it well enough. That was what galled him so much about the situation. Why did she have to pull something like this precisely when his work was at its busiest? He'd done everything he could as a father since his wife had passed away. Why couldn't his daughter see that? It's all right. Your sister will come back. The rain was coming down pretty hard outside the window. Do you think she brought an umbrella? Hitomi asked anxiously. I don't know, but with the rain like this, she'll come back home soon enough. He spoke the words for himself as much as for Hitomi. Then he headed back to his study and got back to work. Several hours went by and still Maria did not return. The rain had gotten even more intense, to the point where Osawa could hear it in his study. He was so concerned about his missing girl that he couldn't focus on his work, but he stubbornly refused to give in and go search for her. Several more hours passed. At last, Maria appeared at the front door, soaking wet. Osawa met her silently in the entryway. Wet strands of hair clung to the girl's forehead, and she looked up at her father with a bitter glare. You don't care what happens to me, do you? Immediately, Osawa smacked her across the cheek with the flat of his hand. It was the first time in his life he'd ever struck anyone. He hadn't known such a violent impulse could exist inside him. Maria stood there, her hand pressed to her cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes. She began to tremble. On her lip was a small bead of blood. A flood of guilt and regret rose up inside Osawa, as if he'd just shattered some intricate piece of glasswork. How could I do such a thing? He clenched his shameful hand into a fist. And in that moment he was afraid of Maria, afraid that his daughter could bring such raw emotion out of him and make him do something so thoughtless. But even more, he was afraid of how stunted he was as a human being. Was someone like him really fit to be a parent? What kind of future could Maria and Hitomi hope for with a father like him? That was why he'd married Ai, as Makino had proposed. Having a mother, he decided would help keep his family together despite their sad excuse for a father. But in so doing, Osawa had dug a psychological ditch between himself and his daughters. A deep ditch so that he could keep his daughters from being hurt. So that he wouldn't hurt himself. Now Osawa was staring across that ditch, wondering if it was too wide to leap. He thought back to his earlier exchange with Kajiwara. If you get angry, you show it. If yet sad you show it. It's human nature to let other people know how we're feeling after all. But what if doing that hurts the other person? That's when you apologize, sir. Yes, that was right. He needed to apologize to Maria for what he'd done that day. It still wasn't too late. It's never too late. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. I mean, pretty words. He recalled Pretty Honey's words. He needed to apologize to Maria, and so he needed to ask I for that password. Osawa was going to have to face his wife. Ugh. Best way to apologize with a banana. Alright. Gonna jump. Can't keep me out, story. You gotta face your wife. Get a password. Save everybody. Sawa's phone rang, and Minorikawa's phone number popped up on the LCD display. The reporter must have finished looking into the matter Osawa had asked about. Mr. Osawa? Sorry to keep you waiting. How did it go? Well, I looked into the background of that story you asked about, and I learned who it was your wife was dating. Who was it? Osawa asked immediately. There was a brief pause. Mamoru Tanaka. I see. Finally, he had proof positive of a relationship between I and Tanaka. Now more than ever, it was no time to waver. No matter how painful the reality was, it was also true that if they hadn't been dating, there would probably be no way of saving Maria. So, Minorikawa said, what was this big thing about disrupting the power balance of the world all about? There's something I need to take care of on my end first. Once I'm finished, I'll tell you everything. Yeah, that's fine. Things are pretty hectic on my end right now anyway. Osawa had expected Minorikawa to put up more of a fight. He figured a reporter for 4-star General gossip would be a bit more persistent. Oh, by the way, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, Mr. Osawa. Osawa could practically sense the finger pointing his way from the other end of the line. Don't be too angry with your wife. All too often in this world, people let their anger get in the way of solving their problems. You may have a point. Osawa let out a wry chuckle. All right then, I'll call you back later. Osawa found Ai standing by herself in the yard. She kept her back to him as he approached. May I have a moment? He asked quietly. What? Still, she didn't bother to turn around. There's something important I need to talk to you about. I'm not in the mood right now. Please, Ai. I realize you're upset about Tanaka's death, but at the mention of Tanaka's name, Ai slowly shook her head. Don't. Just tell me what you want. Hurry up and get to the point. Osawa tried to move closer to her, but she pointedly kept her distance. No, you know what? Let's see if we can do this like adults. There's something Osawa needed to hear for himself before this went any further. Were you in love with Tanaka? What are you talking about? Osawa frowned. Why did you marry me? He asked. You've got to be kidding. This is the important discussion you wanted to have? Did you ever love me? I let out a joyless chuckle. Love? I'm amazed to even hear the word leave your lips. There was a note of challenge in her voice. Let me ask you the same question. Did you ever love me? To be honest, I married you because I thought my daughters needed a mother. Wow. I let out a weary sigh. Some of the combative tension left her shoulders. That really is honest, she said. So I guess I should be honest too. I married you because my father asked me to. He wanted to chain you down so you didn't leave for some other company. And you were okay with marrying someone for something like that? For something like that. You really have no idea how much you're worth, do you? The value of one woman's life versus the potential profits your research would bring in? There's no comparing the two. If it meant that Okashi Pharmaceutical could monopolize your talents, then what did it even matter what I wanted for myself? There was something akin to desperation in Aya's words. And so you sent me those threatening emails too? What? I looked at him in shock. He knew he'd guessed correctly. You would go that far? Just to keep me tied to your father's business? That's right, I would. I bit down on her lip hard. But would you even know about how I feel? I'm sorry, don't apologize. I shook her head vehemently. I'm not the victim here. You say that, but isn't it because of me that you and Tanaka weren't able to stay together? I began to tremble. Her secret was out. When did you figure it out, she asked. Earlier today. That tie clip? Heh, right. Not the sort of gift one gives to one's husband's coworker, is it? Even if it was a listening device. Ai's smile was bitter with self-deprecation. Osawa couldn't help but pity her. Even Tanaka must have suspected that she placed the company's profit above all else, if she'd go to such lengths to protect its interests. It was like she'd given up her entire life just for that. Well, she said, aren't you angry? Osawa just shook his head. Could you tell me just one thing, though? He asked. Did Tanaka ever tell you what his lab password was? His password. I needed to get the antiviral out of the lab. I flinched at the suggestion. To get it out? What are you thinking? That belongs to the company. I just need one dose to save Maria. Please, if you know, please tell me. I don't know it. Ai's voice was barely a whisper. Osawa looked his wife right in the eye. You're telling the truth? I am. I see. Then, do you have any idea what number he might have used for a password? Ai shook her head silently, then turned her back to her husband once more. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes tight. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Ooh, a second keep out. I figure it actually might be the date of the publication article, or the date that they got married or something. The date the bad thing happened. I like how everyone's guessing all of these numbers in the chat, and not a single person has guessed 428. Okay. Okay. No jumps here. He's got no jumps. I already used that jump. Is that really? This looks like it's my only other jump right now. Why can't I jump to... Why can't I jump to Achi? Yeah, I used that jump already. Nobody else has a jump. This'll just take me back to the other jump, won't it? Maria's not here anymore. I need a different choice. That was not the choice section. Come on. This one. Right, because Achi's name was in there or something, wasn't it? Endo. Right, that makes sense. The workroom door slowly eased open. Achi was too shocked for words. The girl who entered looked just like Hitomi. Maria! Hitomi! Achi blinked in bewilderment. It was almost as if Hitomi were standing in front of a mirror. The two girls looked so similar. Maria, thank goodness you're all right. I'm so sorry I had you worried. Maria was safe, Achi realized. At last he had managed to fulfill his duty. How did you manage to get out of the storeroom? Daisuke had gone pale. Tell me, Maria said sharply. Who was it who came up with this kidnapping plan? Suddenly, Daisuke shoved Maria aside and lunged for Hitomi. Stanley moved to stop him, but before he could intervene, the older man had a hold on Hitomi, pressing something that looked like a flashlight up against her neck. Dad? Achi stared toward him, but Stanley held up a hand. Don't move, that's a stun gun. Fun fact, a stun gun is a piece of self-defense equipment for repelling would-be attackers with an electrical shock. There are several types, including baton-type stun prods and guns that fire needles attached to flexible wires. The later type especially is frequently referred to in the US as a taser or taser gun due to the popular models produced by Taser International, now Axon. Stun guns are used not only by civilians but also by law enforcement and military personnel for non-lethal applications. Stun fact. If he zaps her in the neck, he could kill her. You know your stuff, Daisuke said. You deal in American electronics? No, I do this for a living. Stanley drew his gun in an instant, taking aim at Daisuke's forehead. Wait, hold on. Achi interposed himself between Stanley and his father. Dad, let Hitomi go. You need to stop this nonsense. Achi walked slowly toward his father, a pleading look in his eyes. Nonsense? Which of us is talking nonsense here? You don't know what's going on. If you do everything, then you'd be helping me. What do you mean, everything? With this girl's heart, we can save Suzune. Dad, who was it exactly that told you that? Daisuke did not reply. I asked you a question. Who was it that put this crazy idea into your head? A foreign organ trafficker I met at the hospital, Daisuke muttered. In Japan, a medical profession known as a transplant coordinator handles the liaison between the donor and the recipient parties, but there are many cases of illegal or borderline illegal activity carried out by third-party organ brokers. There are countries where organ transplants are openly performed for monetary gain, and no shortage of specialists willing to do the job. These questionable markets include suppliers who source viable organs and tissue for transplant from cadavers. Stanley let out a snort. A likely story. It's true. I was suspicious at first myself, Daisuke said stubbornly, but I couldn't just sit around and wait for Suzune to die. And after talking to him about her rare blood type and all the difficulties in performing a transplant, he promised he'd do everything in his power. Daisuke's hands were trembling. Tears welled up in his vacant and bloodshot eyes. Then, a while later, he got back in touch and told me he'd found a potential match. Someone with the same blood type as Suzune, and roughly the same age. But then he told me that the girl was still alive. And so what was the point? Her heart might be a match for Suzune's, but it didn't matter if we couldn't get our hands on it. And I said that, but then the man told me... He told you what? Achi bit his lip. He told me to abduct her and turn her over to him. After that, he'd find a way to make it all work. At last, Daisuke had confessed. Now Achi had to try to come to grips with the truth he had just heard. I had to do something, his father continued vehemently. I had to abduct this girl and see things through. I just couldn't take it. Kotone had already been taken from me. The thought of losing Susune, too. I had to make sure I didn't fail. So it was this organ trafficker who came up with the kidnapping scheme then, Stanley said. He kept his gun aimed at his target. Daisuke nodded. Describe him for me. He was tall, had black hair, spoke fluent Japanese. Stanley raised an eyebrow at that, and she wondered if he had some idea who it might be. And taking Maria Osawa hostage in order to lure out Hitomi, that was his idea as well. Yes, that's right. I allowed his computer to access my surveillance camera system as well. But then, this morning I got a call from the hospital saying Suzune's condition was critical. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to help my girl right away. And then... Daisuke cut himself off, reaffirming his grip on his stun gun. I was looking at the surveillance monitor and I saw a detective I happened to know. He was right next to this girl here, and so I decided to ask him. I knew if I did, he wouldn't refuse. He could never refuse a request from me. And that was the man with the cane, Achi asked. His voice was low and hoarse. Yes, I was giving him directions while I followed you on the monitors. Dad, you need to let go of Hitomi now. There's no point to this. Achi took another step closer to his father. There is a point. If I kill this girl here and now, your sister can get the surgery she needs. But even Achi knew that things couldn't possibly work out that way. His father had grown so desperate to help Suzune that he'd lost all sense of judgment. Why, Achi? Why won't you help me? Don't you want to save Suzune? Daisuke made a pathetic sight, and yet his desperation to save his child was so palpable it was heart-rending. Achi thought back to that time he'd laid his father out when sparring. No matter how pathetic he may have looked, Achi had always felt the sense of paternal love from him. You're not going to be able to talk him down, Stanley murmured. Achi shook his head. Stanley, he said, lower your gun. Tears were welling up in his eyes. Please, lower your gun. Hearing the determination in Achi's voice, Stanley quietly complied. Achi stepped up to Daisuke, getting a firm grip on his father's slender shoulder. Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. Then why are you trying to stop me? Dad, do you think this is what she'd want you to do? Daisuke's face fell. Did Suzune ask for this, Dad? Did she tell you to take someone else's heart so that she could live longer? Did she, Dad? Suddenly the fight seemed to ebb from Daisuke's body. The stun gun hung limply in his hand. If Suzune asked me to go and get someone's heart for her, I wouldn't object. I'd help her, just like she wanted. I wouldn't let you bear these crimes for yourself. But that's not what this is it? Suzune would never ask us to do something like this, would she? By now, tears were streaming down Achi's cheeks. He knew that his father thought about Suzune more than he thought of anyone else, and so he should know full well that she would never want this. Suzune's not like me. She's smart, she's kind, and she'd never be happy about taking someone else's heart. Even if it saved her life, I'm sure she'd never accept that. She wouldn't be able to live with it knowing something so horrible had happened to someone else for her sake. Isn't that the Suzune we know? Daisuke's cheeks were smeared with tears now as well. But then we're not going to be able to help her. The sound of father and son weeping echoed through the workroom. Maybe so, maybe we won't. But that's better than the misery and suffering she'd have to live with. Daisuke slumped to his knees on the floor, collapsing like a crumbling mound of sand. Hitomi, freed from his grip, stood motionless. There were tears in her eyes, too. You're such an idiot, Dad. Such a complete, utter idiot. Sobbing, Achi embraced his father. There was a sudden thud from near the door. Everyone turned to look. Maria had crumpled to the floor, and a newcomer had appeared. At some point, Cannon had silently entered the room. Now she cradled Maria in her arms. Standing in the doorway was a man Achi didn't recognize, his face pale. Nice. Stay back, Cannon shouted at Achi when he tried to approach. It looked like Maria had fallen unconscious. Achi's heart was racing in his chest. An eerie silence fell over the room. For several seconds, no one said a word, their eyes all fixed on Maria. Finally, Cannon looked up, her face ashen. It's starting. What's starting? That's not starting something, that's cliffhanging something. Jerk. Alright, well, I guess we're jumping. It's starting something that needs to be continued. After the young man's desperate pleading, the other fellow, apparently his father, finally gave in. He released his hold on Hitomi. The tension in the room was replaced by a solemn air of gravitas. Seeing father and son weeping as they spoke made Kano think back to his conversation with Tatano before the stakeout. What was it in people that drove them to do such horrible things? Sometimes it was the desire to save the ones they loved. Even such a heartfelt human emotion could drive someone to wrongdoing. Why? Why did people have to be like that? A sudden thud snapped Kano out of his musing. An instant later, Cannon hurried past him into the workroom. Maria had collapsed onto the floor, and now Cannon was beside her. In a panic, Kano rushed into the workroom as well. Stay back, Cannon shouted, as the others tried to huddle around the fallen girl. Please don't be what I think this is. Had the virus gone symptomatic? 2 hours ago, Stanley had told Kano that Maria was infected. He'd also said that her symptoms wouldn't develop for another 4 hours. Shouldn't they still have 2 more hours to go? Maria looked like she was dead, her eyes closed, her body motionless. Hitomi tried to approach despite Cannon's warning. Maria, she cried. Maria, what's wrong? Kano held his arms wide to hold her back. Your sister's been infected with the UA virus. The UA virus? Hitomi's face went pale. Hey, Kano, said to Kanan. Should you really be that close? If she's developed symptoms. But Cannon didn't move from Maria's side. She calmly rested her hand on the other girl's forehead. There's no fever, she said, and there's no blood coming from her ears, no lymph swelling. I'll be alright. She hasn't gone symptomatic yet. In that case, why did she collapse? Hitomi asked. I'm not sure yet. Whatever the case, if we don't get her that antiviral, she's done for. Then we have to get her to the lab right away, Hitomi said. She was trembling with anxiety. No, that's not an option. Kano's tone was grave. You may already be aware, Miss Osawa, but without a password, we can't access the antiviral storage. But when I went there, my father, Mr. Tanaka, Mamoru Tanaka, is dead. Murdered. What? She stared at him, uncomprehendingly. No, that can't be true. He was a member of a crime syndicate. It's possible they killed him in order to silence him. So then, there's no way to save my sister? There was a hollow look in Hitomi's eyes. No, I won't accept that. Why? Why can't we help her? But no one had an answer. Kano gritted his teeth and hung his head. Why did it have to come to this? He'd come this far, but there was nothing he could do, and he hated himself for it. I'll go to the laboratory. It was canon. Electronic lock breaking is my specialty. Wait, the young man actually spoke up suddenly. So you're a martial arts badass, but your specialty is lock breaking? He looked positively dumbstruck. Cannon ignored him, thinking out loud. Brute force. Brute force, a cryptanalysis technique that involves test input of all theoretical possible patterns. If time were unlimited, this would be the most reliable means of decipherment. However, in practice, the process takes massive amounts of time and computational power, and can be defeated by systems that prohibit access after a limited number of failed input attempts. Side channel. Rather than trying to decipher the password itself, this method involves analyzing information from the device, such as processing time, power consumption, and electromagnetic leaks, and using these details to exploit the system. Isolating the run state of devices is a crucial element of countering side-channel attacks. Shortcut. A cryptanalysis method that uses mathematical algorithms to carry out efficient bulk calculations against a block cipher that makes use of a shared key for encryption and decryption. Even when such calculations are theoretically possible, however, in practice, the process requires large amounts of time, and the block cipher is seldom at real risk. Given the situation, I think I have to go with side channel. Side channel? Stanley asked. Where's your equipment? One of the lab PCs will suffice. I can connect to a special server from the net. I don't really understand stuff you're talking about, Achi said. But I'll trust you to handle this. I mean, you did risk your life to save Hitomi from that minivan explosion and all. Cannon nodded. I have to warn you in advance, though. Cryptanalysis can take hours and still yield no results. I can't guarantee I'll be able to get the doors unlocked before Maria develops symptoms. I understand, Hitomi said. Achi nodded too. No one present had any objections, or any other real options. All of a sudden, there was a curious sound from somewhere in the room. What's that? Kano asked. What's making that noise? He looked around the workroom. That's my computer. Daisuke hurried to his desktop. The bank of monitors which had been displaying surveillance camera footage from around Shibuya had all gone black. What the hell? What's going on, Dad? Achi joined his father, staring at the computer screens. It's all gone. The camera footage. It's been deleted. Good cheesecake. Hey, thank you for that 4-month resub. Oh hey, 4 whole months. Daisuke blinked in disbelief. Didn't you trash the footage when you, the hard drive thing? Now then, it seems our main cast has all been assembled. A man's voice, distorted by a voice modulator, suddenly emerged from the computer speakers. A moment later, the monitors all began to display a view of the inside of the workroom. Dad, what the hell is this? Someone's broken through our firewall. Fun fact, firewall is a security system for preventing unauthorized intrusion into a computer network. The term stems from a metaphorical reapplication of the concept of a wall meant to inhibit the spread of fire or other destructive forces. They've hijacked our surveillance camera system. The color drained from Daisuke's face as he looked at the screens. Where are they filming us from? Kano asked, scanning the inside of the room. He used the image on the monitors to guess where the camera might be located. Over here? The lens of a camera set atop the computer monitor glimmered like an eye. It was a miniature camera used for web conferencing and the like. Now that Maria and Hitomi are both there, you probably have surmised the situation at hand. And so, I offer a proposal. The laboratory password in exchange for Hitomi's blood. Realizing now that it was Alfred's voice they were hearing, everyone in the room froze. At 7 o'clock, roughly 1 hour from now, see that Hitomi Osawa is waiting at the Scramble intersection outside Shibuya Station, just like this morning. Unless, of course, you're feeling particularly confident. You do have Cannon with you. Perhaps you'd care to take a gamble on her lock-breaking skills instead. Cannon clucked her tongue in frustration. Alfred had known exactly what the plan was. Of course, if Cannon isn't able to get the door open in time, what will you do then? Maria is sure to die, yes, but that's not all. If you don't agree to my offer, I have the means of creating another Maria, and a third. These infectees will spread the virus through Tokyo. The death toll will likely number in hundreds of thousands. It is difficult to protect the scope of infection in the event of a bioterrorist attack employing a highly infectious viral agent in a city with a large immobile population. In a worst-case scenario, some researchers estimate as many as several million infected in a matter of days. So do think carefully before you decide. Alfred's voice was chillingly matter-of-fact. I will appear at the rendezvous in person. After all, it wouldn't do for the star of the show to miss the final curtain. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you then. Silence fell. Then the images on the computer monitor returned to normal. The surveillance camera footage came back online as well. Daisuke promptly yanked out his Ethernet cable and slammed his fists on the keyboard. Damn it, there was a hole in the firewall. I'll have to redo my security from the ground up. Good call, Cannon said calmly. We can't win this if our intel keeps getting leaked. Stanley pursed his lips in consternation. What do we do? Kano asked him. Do we give in to his demands? I mean, do we really expect that he's just going to blithely show up like that? He's practically begging for us to come and catch him. There had to be some deeper plan at work. If it means saving my sister, I'll do it. Hitomi was resolute. No, Stanley said, you can't. What? Why not? Because if you do, you'll be killed. What? Hitomi's voice caught in her throat. With the antiviral still present in your body, a week after the fact, you're too much of a liability for Alfred to just let go. He's right. Don't do it, Achi exclaimed. Hitomi, you can't go. Even still, I want to do it. Hitomi stared defiantly at Stanley. You still want to go even knowing that you'll be killed? I can't just sit here and hope that Cannon is able to pull this off, she said. I want to do something for my sister. I want to save her. She peered down at Maria sprawled on the floor. She'd object to me going. I'm sure of that. But I want to do what I can. To do things my way. No one tried to contradict her this time. If she's willing to take the risk, then there are things the rest of you can do too. It was Cannon again. Let's hear it, Kano replied. He squared his shoulders. He was of the same mind as Hitomi. He couldn't just do nothing and leave it all to Cannon. After everything he'd been through, he wanted to stick with his case until the very end. Apprehend Alfred in the rendezvous and demand the password from him, Cannon offered the suggestion, as if it were a simple task. That lets you get what you want without putting Hitomi in danger. Kano let out a sigh. Hold on, he said. Even if we do arrest him, how are we going to get him to cough up the password? We don't have time to drag him off to an interrogation room. And besides, he doesn't strike me as the sort to offer confession that easily. There are ways, Cannon said. Once Alfred has made contact with Hitomi, call my cell phone. Hitomi tilted her head. Call you? I have plenty of information Alfred might want to bargain for. I can negotiate with him directly. Kano considered Cannon's proposal. I see. So, we'll try both options. Attempt to hack the password at the lab, also try negotiating with Alfred. That gives us 2 chances. With that tiny ray of hope, Hitomi's face brightened some. We'll split into 2 groups. One for the lab and one for Shibuya Station, Cannon said. Let's exchange phone numbers so we can be in touch when the time comes. The group quickly shared contact info as suggested. Hitomi and Cannon called one another's phones to be sure. Hitomi's cheerful ringtone felt out of place, but also somehow soothing, a fragment of normalcy in the midst of crisis. Well, guess we're all set then, Hitomi said, looking down at the LCD screen. Her expression turned apologetic. I'm sorry, Cannon, for having to keep putting things on you. Hey, Cannon replied. Don't worry about it. Okay. Now I guess I should call my father. Hitomi called Kenji Osawa on his cell phone, asking him to let Maria and Cannon into the lab. Good. Kano leaned in to whisper into Cannon's ear. Are you sure you're okay with this? With what? I know that you're after Alfred. Are you sure you want to go to the lab and not? Right now I want to save Maria. That's all. Her tone was as curt and mechanical as ever, but there was a fierce gleam of determination in her eyes. Maria was clearly someone very special to her. All right, Kano replied. Leave Alfred to me. He thumped himself on the chest. He'd succeed this time, no matter what the odds. Kano could scarcely recall the whirlwind of events that had brought him here. He'd somehow survived a dozen disasters. Even now, a dear friend was in the hospital at risk of dying. There were times when he'd been ready to give up, and yet at the end of it all, here he was. His opponent was an international terrorist. No matter how you looked at it, that wasn't a matchup for a mere detective. But I'm gonna do it anyway. Rumi, Shizuyo, Sasayama, and Detective Tatano, I'm going to take down Alfred and save Osawa's life. Just you watch and see. Did I get us to chapter end? Nice. What do I have left of this chapter? Got you, you're done. Narakawa's got more. Oh, is it because... Why is there more here? Oh, do I have to... I see. Blah. Okay, yeah, I think that fixed it. Yeah, okay, cool. So that just leaves this one, which we had show up in Kano's timeline? Yeah, Kano's timeline. Alright, cool. I want to finish off this chapter before we end for the night. We can't be that far off. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes tight. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Osawa's cell phone rang. When he saw the name on the incoming call display, he nearly shouted out loud. It was Hitomi. Hitomi? Are you alright? Please tell me you're alright. Yeah, I'm fine. But Maria's... Maria? Is Maria there with you? Osawa's heart leapt. Dad, there isn't any time for me to explain everything, so I'll have to just give you the main points. This is so we can save my sister, so just stay calm and listen. Osawa struggled to hold back the 1,000 questions that immediately came boiling into his mind. There's a girl named Cannon who's going to bring Maria to the lab. She's going to try to hack the password in order to get us inside. Wait, hold on. Just what in the world is going on? There are a bunch of people here working to help save Maria. Can you wait for us at the lab, Dad? I'm not sure that electronic lock is something that'll be so easy to. We've got another plan in motion too. And if that goes well, we might be able to learn the password. It was all too much to follow, but Osawa realized he'd have to take Hitomi at her word. It was their only hope of saving Maria. Alright, he said. I'll do as you ask. But you said you're trying 2 approaches. You're not going to be in danger, are you? No, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Okay, very well. I'm heading to the laboratory now. You can't go. The moment Osawa hung up and started for the house, I clung to him from behind. If you use the antiviral now, she said, everything will go public. There's no way we can keep the virus or the antiviral under wraps at this point. Osama tried to pull free, but his wife was stronger than he expected. Besides, if Maria infects other people, the whole world is going to find out in a matter of hours. No, we can just quarantine her. If it's handled correctly, we'll still be able to retain secrecy. Ai's voice was cold as ice. Do you even have any idea what you're saying right now? I do. I know how it sounds. But this is the only thing I can... Her voice trailed off. He could feel the force of her trembling where she held him. Have I really put you into that much of a corner? Osawa slipped from Ai's arms and prostrated himself on the ground in front of her. I'm sorry. I truly, truly sorry. Oh, stop this. Get up. If you're really sorry, then don't go to that lab. But Osawa remained silent, his forehead pressed to the dirt. If you use that antiviral without corporate approval, your time with Okoshi is finished. That doesn't matter to me anymore. How can you say that? Virology is the only thing you've ever cared about. I began pummeling his back. Maybe virology is all that I care about. I don't know the first thing about anything else. I never wanted to know, never even thought to find out, never bothered to learn what you or my children might think. I'm a failure, as a father and as a husband. How dare you say that only after it's come to this? I struck him again, harder than before. You're right, he gasped out, the words between her blows. Maybe this has been too long coming, but it's not too late. I can still start over. Start over? She paused in disbelief. You already turned down that American job. If you use that antiviral now, there won't be any starting over. You'll lose everything. Will I lose you too? After you've gone and thrown everything else away like this? How could I possibly stay with you? I was sobbing softly now. Osawa wondered what her tears were for. But there was one thing he did know. She was right. They couldn't be together anymore. He got to his feet and headed back into the house, leaving Ai behind. He hurried through the back entrance and went into the garage. He climbed into his car, fastened his seatbelt, and took a deep breath. The image of a younger Maria arose in the back of his mind. There she was at that park, getting drenched by the rain, holding back her tears as she waited for her father. Wait for me, Maria. This time I'm going to come for you. I was wrong. Going to the lab wouldn't mean losing everything. He'd left too many important things slip through his fingers. Now it was time to go take them back. Osawa pulled his car onto the street and sped toward the laboratory. As if to signal that long day was drawing to a close, the dazzling sun sank down between the buildings in the distance. Oh, hey. End of his story. Cool. That leaves us with 3 storylines. Yeah, last chapter. Neat. Alright. 9:15, not bad. We will be tackling this next week. So that'll be fun. I don't know that we can get it all done in one stream or not. It might still be a couple of streams. So that's gonna be it for tonight, and for our next scheduled stream is gonna be next Thursday, but we will, I'm gonna maybe see about doing an extra stream early in the week, not for this game, but for another game. Hey Joe Kim, how you doing? just catching me at the end of the stream. Joe Kim Bar Crawl. Oh, that sounds fun. Manfred909. Hey, thank you for that resub. Whole year. Oh, dang it. That's okay. I managed to do that twice last week. I was kept rating people who were ending their streams. It happens. It's still fun. Yeah, so next week, we'll definitely be back to the regular stream schedule of Thursday, Fridays, and Sundays. But we'll see about doing an additional stream to make up for this Sunday not being a thing we can do. I have to figure that out later. I have to go eat some food and pack and get ready for stuff tomorrow. But we're gonna give Kate a raid because she looks like she's having some sort of PJ party. Looks fun. So let's go say hi to Kate. I'll see you all next week, and you take care. Bye.